We're going to call to order this town council hybrid meeting at 7:01 p.m. It is August 22nd, 2023. If everyone could please rise or point your attention to the flag and for the pledge of allegiance, followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everyone can be. Oh, what's the problem? Yeah. We need to spend for just a quick moment. Okay.
Recording stopped.
All right. We're just in recess for a brief moment while we're waiting for a minor technical issue for the clerk, and then we'll be back in. All right, for anyone who's just joining us, we're in a brief recess, so we'll be reconvening in a moment.
So I'm doing this one, but now it's the one, but
Recording in progress.
All right, great. Thank you, everybody. We're back from recess, so we will move on with the agenda. We are at item number 4, proclamations and presentations. 4.1, this is a proclamation request on honor the efforts of the UCCT. This was a resident requested proclamation. After review, it did seem to be required parameters of the proclamation policy, so this is just a draft after input from the requester as well as some input from the chair and other council members. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the proclamation as outlined, with the caveat that edits may be made before presentation at our next regular meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there any discussion? Yes, Council Luba.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I mean, as far as the proclamation itself, I think that it's something where this seems to be more of a proclamation. I mean, it's sort of a combined proclamation. One, recognizing work from the UCCT as well as Jeff Gallagher, and it's sort of one piggybacking on the other. And I think it's something that, well, I know Jeff, his accomplishments are outstanding. I think it's something that it should be either focused on him or focused on the church, but not on both. And I think that this is one where, looking at it, I would support one that's Jeff and his and what he's done, and focusing on his leadership and some of the other things that are mentioned here, but the way that it's written, that I think that it's inappropriate and doesn't meet the parameters of the proclamation, where it's got to be for extraordinary actions for a person or a group. But I mean, this is a hybrid, I guess, at best. And so I think it's something that that still needs to be significantly worked on with language and other drafts, where we just had the opportunity to see this revised one just about a day and a half, 2 days ago. And I think it's something that the whole council needs to be able to really work on the language and present proposals before we take a final vote on it. So will be my request to table this for further discussion and amendment.
Are any other comments, concerns? I'm personally okay moving forward with it and allowing feedback internally to make any requested changes before it's brought back to us. So that's just my 2 cents. Yeah, Councilor Murray.
I definitely understand what you're saying, Counselor Luba. I think the underlying intent here seems to be, because this is presented to me just like it's presented to you. The underlying intent here seems to be in recognition of Mr. Gallagher's leadership at the church. And so that's the first line here, whereas with Jeff Gallagher's leadership in the church. So to me, I think it makes, this is an instance where those two things are completely tied together, and it makes sense understanding his role with the church. So I do understand your concerns, and I think perhaps there could be some clarifying language. I think in a lot of ways, as Jeff represents the church, and the church's actions are a reflection of his leadership. So I think there is room for maybe a little bit of clarification in that, but to me, it seems like the two go together.
Thank you, Councilor Murray. Are there any other comments or concerns?
I heard Lou say, what are the perimeters? When you say perimeters, are there parameters that we should be following? It's that I'm not aware of, like
There is a proclamation policy that we have, where it sets forth that it's extraordinary achievements. And that that even on the last time that we had this, I'm sorry if I may.
No, of course.
No, I was.
Yeah, you get to respond.
Okay, thank you. That it's something where that we painstakingly separated because there was issues regarding proclamations in the last term that we had, where we went in and specifically outlined what is a proclamation, and that basically we went above and beyond extraordinary. And it had that there were certain ones where there was 5 things that met where were basically automatic. And then anything else had to go to a vote, and it had to be extraordinary. And then we broke it down where for other actions where there could be a citation, which was presented by the chair himself or herself, and that there did need to be a vote on it. And so I think that by us going through and clearly delineating it, that it's something that, you know, looking at the policy that we promulgated, that there are certain things that need to be followed. There are certain things that need to be discussed as far as what, you know, what the extraordinary achievements are and whether or not there is something that calls for a proclamation. So I do think there are certain standards, even though it's not clearly delineated, there are certain standards that need to be discussed.
I appreciate Councilor Lubai. That's why initially I did consider a citation. However, the citation part of our policy is solely at the discretion of the chairperson.
Mhm.
And I did feel this was worth having brought before all of us. You know, and from the requesters information, it did seem to fall within line with the policy in terms of a organization or community group in service to the town of Tolland. So to me, it fell under those two sections of a one subsection A of the policy. But
If I may, Mr. Chair, as well, that, again, the other thing, I mean, you know, this is also one where now we're getting into the grounds where now it's not just an organization, but it's a religious organization, a church.
Yeah.
And that's where it's, are we showing preference for one church, for one religion and one church over another? And looking at, I think we've all seen some of the comments and some of the discussions of these, of various things on various social media and other forums, that, you know, this whole issue regarding the LGBTQ issue, where just some of the things that have been said in comparison of one establishment to another, which is disturbing at best. I think I understand the reason behind this, and you have to understand, I fully understand, and I support the whole intent behind this. But I think it's that we are treading on very difficult ground when you're putting forward a church and supporting a church, even though we may be supporting the leader and what he's done, supporting a church and putting forward a church in relation to a proclamation for what this is, in comparison to some of the things we're, again, seeing online and seeing some of the discussions, what was being said about a different organization, a different religion, a different church, and why they fail to follow through in a certain way, and why they're not doing this. I think that's, I mean, you know, the response I've gotten from a large group of people within town is, it's not our role to promote one religious group over another because of what of their views. And that's really what this, I mean, essentially may come down to. And so, again, while I'm fully supportive and I fully understand why we are doing this and what the meaning for the proclamation is, the way that it's worded and the way that it's putting forward, again, the UCCT Church, where they are doing outstanding work for the community, but the way that it's been, and knowing how it's been presented and the manner, I just think it's that again, it's not appropriate for the proclamation as presented.
all right, no, I appreciate it. All right, any other commentary questions?
Yeah.
Councilor Murray?
Thank you. I would just note that in this draft proclamation, there is no comparison of this, of Jeff or the church with anyone else. This is a recognition with some very detailed of Jeff's work at the church. There's no comparison. There's no mention of any other organization as a comparison. The only mentions of other organizations are recognition of Jeff's service as a chaplain for the fire department, as a chaplain for the state police, and the organizations he volunteers at. But I don't see this as anywhere close to comparing one organization to another. This is simply about Jeff and his work at the church. And there's no mention of a comparison between his work and anyone else's.
Understood and completely agree, but there's also comparison by omission, where if you list other things but leave out a certain group, then essentially you're comparing it to that other group. And I would put it this way: would you be in support if this was one where people put forward a different organization's pro-life stance and support a pro-life position, if that, and saying that because of the steps that they've done to promote this pro-life stance, that we recognize them for a proclamation. Would that be something that, because, I mean, it's a difficult comparison. I mean, it's something where you're taking one religion's stance on a certain issue and, you know, basically is putting it forward as this is what this is what the town endorses, and this is what the town says. I just have a problem with us putting forward anything for any church, for any religious organization, for anything like that, because it's putting preference for one over the other. And that's just my position. Whether or not you agree, I mean, I completely agree that this is all about a discussion. This is all about, open discussion of this. And this is something I'm going to be commenting on later on, is that I don't agree with you. I understand, and I fully respect your position. I understand, and I respect the group that put forward this proclamation. I think it's notable. I think that Jeff is outstanding for what he's done. But I think that us saying that we are supporting this church because of this position, I have a problem with it, because that, then are we again promoting one religion over another, one church over another, or one thing over another? And so that's the problem that I have with this. And, I'm just being open and upfront with it. I'm always willing to hear other sides and open to discussion, but that's just my concerns regarding this proclamation, the way that it's presented.
Councilor Murray.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council? All right, seeing then, I will engage a roll call vote. So Councilor Murray.
Aye.
Councilor Lubo.
Nay.
Councilman Yudichak.
Aye.
Councilman Nuccio. I'm just make sure she's still on Zoom. Are they still here? Nope, thank you. It was I don't see them.
Oh, wait, let's see. She had to step out for a second, and she said that she's coming right back, and it was 1 minute ago.
Okay. You can move that. I mean, we're in the middle of a vote, so I think you have to continue. If there's a technical issue, we can always go back to that, but I am an aye, so that is 3-1 in favor. And absolutely, Councilor Luba, even though we may not entirely agree, I'll absolutely take any of your feedback, any suggestions, to make it something that.
I appreciate that. Again, it's just the way that's presented here, that right now where I just.
Yeah.
I just have the issue with it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
That brings us to item 5, public petitions, communication and participation on any subject or jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limit. If you're on Zoom, you can hit the *9 or raise hand function. If you're in the audience, you can approach the table and state your name and address for the record. Just as a point of note, this is not related to the public hearing. So if you would like to speak specifically on 6.1, the ADA sidewalks on the green, we will have an opportunity there for people to speak. So if there's any other items within the agenda or within the town in general that you'd like to speak about, now would be the time for that. So with that, I'll open the floor to any public participation, and we'll start with Zoom really quick to see if anyone has raised their hand. Seeing none, we'll move back to the audience. So if anyone in the public would like to speak. Yeah, Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Howard Bender, 103 Goose Lane. I'd like to compliment Chairperson Jones, because he chose to do a proclamation instead of a citation. I think that's an effort, for it to be transparent, and I appreciate that. And today I'll just say the town council has an opportunity to be as inclusive as possible. Getting engaged in semantic arguments about hate or not hate really doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just going to say that, and thank you all for your work. I appreciate you all.
All right, thank you, Kate. We'll switch over to Zoom really quick, see if there's anyone on there. All right, we're back to in person. If anyone else would like to speak.
Ron Lappin, 168 Mountain Spring Road. Hello, Town Council. I want to first thank you for the release of the first part of the Langen report concerning salt contaminated wells in Tolland. I appreciate the town's efforts to move in the right direction to correct this issue that is plaguing multiple properties. While this report is expansive, I have some concerns and frustrations with this report. In looking at the initial proposal, the contract between town and Langen dated October 4th, 2022, the scope of work was listed as follows. I'm quoting, Our understanding of the potential assignment is to evaluate the current salt contamination data and make recommendations to further investigate, mitigate, remediate, and or treat the contamination with the goal of having potable water at each identified location, of which Mountain Spring Road 168 is one of them. Furthermore, later on in the proposal, it is stated that Langen will not, and this is quoting, Langen will not opine on potential allocation of contributions when more than one source is identified. End quote. Although my fear, this is exactly what this report does in relation to 168 Mountain Spring Road. When we look at the actual report, there are several key takeaways that can be made for 168 Mountain Spring Road. The report states, quote, "It is our conclusion that public and private roadway salting is likely the primary cause of elevated chlorides in residential wells at 66 Doyle Road, 4 Harvest Lane, and 406 Buff Cap Road because of the increased brining and salting to address the 3 consecutive years of above normal snowfall. Chloride concentrations at 168 Mountain Spring Road follow the same pattern. However, the primary cause may be distal salting on a commercial property and not from salting of the roadways immediately adjacent to 168 Mountain Spring Road." End quote. Even if some extraneous entity is potentially contributing to the contamination of my well, the town is still in part culpable because road salting has not been removed as a potential source / contributor, and therefore this report should still be looking at longer term options for potable water. I want to circle scope of work where 3 out of the 4 main objectives of this report were to mitigate, remediate, and or treat the contamination with the goal of having potable water at each identified location. DEEP has echoed this sentiment in an email to the town dated 4/10/2023, where it is stated that DEEP is quote unquote reaffirming the request for the town of Tolland to provide proposed cost estimates and time schedules for implementing alternative provision of potable drinking water to all impacted residents. To that end, the only recommendation to obtain a source of potable water for 168 Mountain Spring is to potentially drill a new well to a deeper depth, but the actual recommendation is scant on details as evidenced by the statement that, quote, "A new well may not have to be twice the current depth, e.g. 700 plus feet," end quote. With no other talk of timelines or other details. It is even more concerning because the report requests more information to make a better and more accurate recommendation. And some of this information the town should have at its disposal, namely providing Langen details on the, quote unquote, providing Langen details on the newest well, specifications and drilling log, which was quoted to be drilled 350 feet BGS and cased to 60 feet BGS, end quote. The town insurance carrier paid for this well to be drilled on my property by Lemp Framboys on my property in May of 2021. So I'm confused to why the town would not readily have this information or why it was not supplied to Langen, which in turn delays this process even further. Finally, I would like to ask what further steps the town has taken since the report was completed in early January of 2023 to further the goal of getting 168 Mountain Spring Road potable water. Have the town authorized Langen to conduct further analysis? Has Langen been given any of the data that is requested for further analysis by the town or DEEP? Has Langen proposed a better solution than drilling a new well to an unspecified deeper depth to get potable water on my property? Is the town council authorizing the drilling of a new well 700 plus feet to obtain a potable source of water in the immediate future to attempt to rectify the issues as per the report? If none of these questions have answers, then what is the timeline associated with moving forward with this work, which was an ask of DEP from 4 months ago? Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Switch back to Zoom. Let's see any Zoom recommendations, so we'll switch back to in-person. Does anybody from the public that would like to speak? Free to do so. George?
Hi, Joe George, Fish and Game Road. I'd like to say that I agree with Councilman Ruby. I think we should keep the separation of certain church and state. One does have nothing to do with the other. They can work together, but it should be separate as far as stuff like this is concerned. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Seeing no further Zoom, Claudette Morehouse. That's to mute. There we go. You should be all set, Claudette.
Good evening, Claudette Morehouse, 89 Merlot Way, Tolland. I'd like to piggyback on Sean Lappin's comments because I do have a few concerns of the report that was finally released to us. No consultant has reached out to any of my neighbors or myself for any further testing. And the first line or the first paragraph of that report, they said that it was provided, information provided by the town. So basically the town has the same report from DEP that we have from the year-long testing and the test wells. So I guess my concern is the town spending money on consultants just to keep rewriting the same report? What are further testings going to be done? Are they going to reach out to us? I think that, you know, that report is stale at best. And apparently there's another report out or coming out from a different consultant from what I hear. And still no one has reached out to the residents of Tolland that have this issue that for any further testing. So how many times is the DEP report going to be rewritten at the expense of the Tolland taxpayers? Thank you.
Thank you, Claudette. With in-person participation, if anyone would like to speak on any topic in the town council, they can approach the table.
Okay.
All right, seeing none, we will move on to, or going once, going twice. So Rebecca Grizzly. I'll ask you to unmute.
Hi, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'm on my phone. Rebecca Risley, 103 Mountain Spring Road. Didn't have anything prepared. I kind of jumped on last minute here, but this was a meeting that was important to me for many reasons. There's some things on the agenda that I think are very important that we discuss as a town. And I know one of them you said is off limits until after the public discourse or after the council discusses it. However, the proclamation was discussed, and I would just like to give my support for Mr. Gallagher. I think that it's a well-deserved proclamation. He's done amazing things for our town, and I think that he should certainly be recognized for those efforts and that support to our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, go back to in person. Any further help, Marilee?
Merrily Beatty, 90 Road Road. Just regarding the proclamation and citation for the UCC and Jeff Gallagher. This shouldn't be hard. This shouldn't even be a question. The UCC has received hate mail. This council and this government has helped the UCC with security because of concerns about hate messaging and possible violence that has been conducted against churches that support LGBTQ individuals. On Friday, a woman was shot in the head and killed in her place of business in California simply because she displayed the pride flag. The council was barricading on support for a man and an institution that stand bravely against those who sow hatred and those who would expand upon suspicion and encourage violence against these individuals. And they place themselves in harm's way by standing against hate. And we're supporting that we recognize the individuals that would stand up, put themselves in harm's way and stand against that. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilee. Anyone else from the public? All right, going once, going twice. 3 times public participation is closed on that topic. That brings us to item 6. Public hearing item 6.1 of the ADA sidewalks on the green. Just to go over the process for everybody here, much busier crowd than normal. So the way in which the hearings are conducted is there's a report from the town manager or other appropriate official. Discussions and questions are conducted by town council. At that point, public participation will be opened. Councilman Murray, who does the reporting of correspondence, will provide a summary of correspondence received regarding the public hearing. And at that point, we'll do similar to public participation, going back and forth between Zoom and in person for participation. So with that, we'll turn over to Mr. Foley to give a summary of 6.1.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Council, for giving me the opportunity. I'm happy to have such great public participation at our council meetings. I wish we had this at every meeting. But tonight. I'm here to speak about what's happened so far in regards and where we stand today in regards to ADA access to our Tolland Green. As a resident, I watched for many years, watched this fight go down back and forth, and it was clear to me when I was hired here that there would not be any consensus in the green. And I was hired and charged with making a decision and moving forward unanimously by the council to go in that direction. Coincidentally, also hired to try to help with the polarization in town. It's kind of going against things here. But I decided to look at all the factors involved. I held meetings with the stakeholders, from the disabilities to the Historic District Commission leaders, Historical Society, met with so many others. I saw external opinions from people outside of town, just on their thoughts professionally and as to which way, how things would unfold. I carefully used the town attorney to examine, re-examine, and re-examine this entire process. And we prepared diligently for all possible outcomes, and we continue to do so. I decided after many factors, input from everybody, to put a sidewalk down the middle of the green. We had an engineer come in and engineer the drawings for it. We approached the committee and asked for money to pay for it. It was unanimously accepted to pay for the sidewalk down the middle of the green by the ARPA committee to pay for that. And then it was also unanimously approved by town council to also move forward in exploring the sidewalk down the middle of the green. We moved forward with that. We had the drawings and we were moving steadfastly towards putting a sidewalk down the middle of the green. On June 22nd, I received an email from the president of the Historic District Commission. I'll read that email. Good evening. As discussed at our HDC meeting last night, please find an alternative rough draft design plan for an ADA compliant sidewalk located on the east side of the green, closer to the carriage road where parking is available. There could be a curb cut added near the holiday tree to make access easier, as well as other adjustments and more meandering around the trees on the north green. The sidewalk surface color would complement the green, gray pavers the Veterans Recognition Commission is considering, and blend with the existing historic sidewalks as well. On 6/27, I was CC'd on an email from the same Miss Coleman Marzialo to SHPO. And she said pretty much the same thing to SHPO, notifying them of our plans. And I read, hi, Brad and Mary. I want to keep you in the loop. I had conversations with Town Manager Foley on Wednesday about the material and location and asked if he would consider an alternative sidewalk design plan on the east side of the green, closer to Carriage Road. He said that that would cost money and that the veterans had to voluntarily help them. Help them. So I had a volunteer design a rough draft plan with the sidewalks on the east side to reflect what the HDC, HS, and many other groups were thinking. We can add a curb cut by the holiday tree for easier access and a bit more meandering around the trees on the north green. And the sidewalk material would complement the gray pavers the VRC are now considering. I sent this to the town manager, town council, PZC, and human services on Thursday. Please let me know what you think. I appreciate your advice and assistance regarding the proposed sidewalks on our nationally registered town green. With that in place, I approached our town engineer, and for just under $10,000 began the design phase of the design proposed by the Historic District Commission president or chair. We had the new drawings. Right now we have a preliminary drawings. We sought the opinions of attorney as we move forward related to a COA, a certificate of approval from the Historic District Commission. Over and over again, the attorney was steadfast in that they can provide advice only, to which they did. In fact, we took their plan. That opinion was asked for and provided to the Historic District Commission. Of note, one question that I had, did the state of Connecticut, when they put sidewalks, concrete sidewalks, 5 foot on our greens, did they have to do a COA? And they told the town they did not have to do a COA, and they did not. We sent letters to the abutters, in relation to this meeting here tonight. And some things of note, we do have a temporary mat sidewalk there. We put them down at the beginning of the summer. I'm glad we did. I challenge anyone to go out there and find them right now. They're gone. They've disappeared and they're utterly useless. They're useless to anyone with disabilities compared to just the actual grass. In order to move the mats, for those that do not know, it takes 4 staff 2 days to relocate the mats. It's not a matter of like throwing down a carpet down your hallway. It's quite a process and obviously has effect on our DPW operations. So, Mike, if you could pull up the preliminary designs, and I want to say these again, these are preliminary. But very, very close to where we're going to be, but there'll be some changes, and I'll briefly explain where we are. Go to the next one, Mike, if you could. There we go. Now, okay. So I'll kind of start here, which is right out here in front of the basically our great art center. This is where the veterans.
Could you just move the build a little bit? I don't think people can all
Okay.
see what you're pointing at. And we can see behind you.
There's copies here.
There are copies too, by the way, of these plans. So the basic plans, and then again, these are not the plans that I drew up or that anyone can see here. These were submitted by the HDC chair to the town council and the town manager's office and submitted to the engineer for design. I want to note that we walked with the historic district commission and the historical society leadership on the green to go through these designs in greater detail. So this veterans recognition area over here is being designed, also paid for by ARPA funds by a volunteer. I don't think there's any argument or discussion about that area at all. The sidewalk that was proposed would start on the east side of the green, just off the Veterans Commission, and kind of meander around trees without harming them. Of course, I've heard that sidewalks kill trees, when in fact, if you walk down any street in USA, trees kill sidewalks. The sidewalks would meander around the trees, the length of the green, this first green here, and then come into the existing sidewalks on the green that the state of Connecticut put in there. We agreed with the HDC president in good faith to do it in 4-foot sidewalk as opposed to 5 that she presented. However, with a 4-foot sidewalk to stay ADHA, you need a passing area every 200 feet. They agreed that this would be doable. And of course, they were going to tell us where those 200 feet passing places would be. It didn't matter as long as they were there, they could decide where they are, and some cutout access in here as well to allow access to the sidewalks without having to go to the very distal ends. That also being said, there's some angled curving here for cars to drive over. You worry about cars driving over sidewalks and that cars could damage sidewalks. I again challenge you to go to every town USA. There's sidewalks that go right across driveways. Though that concrete has to be 8 inches thick for cars to drive over it. We would certainly do it 8 inches thick anywhere where we anticipated cars driving over it. For example, the farmer's market, which would be on the west of the sidewalk facing east that way. So if people with disabilities or all our general public could use that sidewalk to access our very popular farmer's market. It should be noted that since I've been here, you asked, Mr. Chair, for me to increase the events on the green and access to the green. Since I've been here, there's been 65 days where there's been events on the green. Roughly 15% of the days I've been here, there's been events there. So the green is used a lot and should be, in my opinion, and I believe in council's, access to everybody to enjoy those events as best as possible. So that is basically the first half and really the beef of where the events take place as well. Mike, you can go to the next one. Okay, and here we go with the second half of the green. Not a lot fancy here. We did discuss with the HDC president and the historical society leadership again that some trees may have to move and where they wanted them and such. And of course, it didn't. That's fine with us. Whatever they wanted, we acquiesced. And the sidewalk will come down again the east side of the green and connect with basically the access points that are already there to the green. So if you're a person in a wheelchair, the access points go to nowhere. You drive up and right now you drive on the grass and you're stuck. And you can't go anywhere. So we want to connect those access points, connect the sidewalks that are already put in here by the state of Connecticut. And make the green accessible to all and make it a place that people can enjoy and walk and have it a place to have events, have celebrations, or just exercise. So this is the basic design, Mr. Chair and council, and I'm open to any questions you have.
Thank you, Brian. I'll open the floor to any questions from council members. And actually, Brian, are you good with, actually, you can leave the screen as this. I think good. Okay. So with that, I'll open the floor to any questions from council members.
Sure.
Councilmember.
Can we just clarify, thank you, Brian, first of all, for bringing us to tonight. I appreciate that. Just for clarity, we were not required to have this public hearing, right? This is something that's done at our request to ensure that we have public input.
In going over the process with our town attorney, we were not required to have this hearing at all. You specifically requested to have the hearing and for us to write a letter to the abutters and the People with Disabilities Commission and the HDC, notifying them of this and to have the hearing.
Thank you. And I wanted to thank you, Steve, for your willingness to make sure that happened. I think it is really important that we do involve our community in making this decision. And can you, Brian, talk to us a little bit about next steps, or maybe Steve can, like, are we voting on this tonight? What's going on here?
Yeah, no, I think Brian summed it up pretty well that, yeah, this is mostly all for public input. There is no decision being made tonight. At this point, there is an 8-24G, I believe, referral to the PZC that is in process. I believe we'll be making their recommendations next week. In addition, the PZC has referred this to the Design Advisory Board. They conducted a meeting on the 22nd and have opted to make any final recommendations back to the PZC next week as well, or later this week. So I believe that's where we're at. So once we get those recommendations, final action will likely be on the agenda for the September 12th meeting.
Okay, thank you. And just again, to clarify, because I don't share the same breadth of experience as some of my colleagues, this is something that's been under discussion. Like this didn't just come up when we hired Brian last year, right?
No, I believe, and I know Tammy's at home and she can speak up if she'd like to. I know Councilor Wood was on, I think starting in 2017.
Yes.
So
2019, end of 2018, and 2018.
yeah, so I believe for them, it's been ongoing since they've been on. It's been ongoing since I've been on for 4 years. So 4 years, 5, 6 years. Unmute Councilman Nuccio to respond as well. Or ask them to unmute. Hopefully they can. There we go. You're good.
I can't put my camera on, but that's totally fine. Come back and forth between cameras tonight. Yeah, so this is basically something, Katie, that came up very early in 4 years ago, when I was chair and Steve was vice chair. I think it was probably actually first started to be talked about during one of our first meetings. So there's been a lot of work on this. There's now been work on this through 3 town managers. If you count Rosen, Lisa is interim, and now Brian. There have been a lot of meetings with SHPO, walking the green, looking at the current stuff that's there, looking at different options, different designs, like how to do this. So it's definitely been in the works for a long time. And I want to kind of mirror what you said and thank Brian. We knew throwing this at him and saying, we really wanted to get some resolution on this meant he was going to have to take those 2 prior town managers' notes and feedback and kind of come up with a plan. And I was really happy to see the plans that were submitted by the president of the Historic District Commission, because I thought it was a really good compromise. And I actually really liked their design of weaving around the trees and all of that. Brought up some of the same concerns Brian had about making sure we can drive over it, making sure that, when the roots grew up and everything, that we were taking all that into consideration. So it's been in the works for a long time, and I'm happy to see that we've got some consensus here, and that we're bringing the public into it. Like you said, we don't have to bring the public into this. It's not a decision that has to go through a public hearing. But I think this is something that's important. We all tried to really work on making sure, as Brian said, the green was open and accessible. Harking back to the old days of, the town green was where you got your news and where you had interaction and, where the community came together. I think it's just very important to note that it is, it's vital that when we say it's someplace that the community can come together, it's all of the community, like it's everybody. So I want to thank Brian for the work that was done. I want to thank the HDC president for the plans, because I like I said, I love them, but and just thank everybody who's been an advocate and everybody who's brought up things that we didn't think about, and just all the work that's being done here. So I know that was really long and winded, but this is, I'm very happy to see that we're finally coming. I see Steve smiling kind of break from the small camera that I can see on my thing here, but this is something that I'm just glad to see that we're seeing it through to fruition before the council changes over in November.
No, you're good, Tammy. I appreciate it. This is, our time to have this back and forth, and then we're throwing it to the public. So this is our good time to have these discussions. One quick clarification, Brian. I know there were certainly some concerns from residents and even some council members about the original plan and the safety of it being closer to 195. Now, did you and I believe
Sure, myself, if I can, I know where you're going.
Yeah.
In regard, amazing how many public safety and traffic experts rear their heads in town when something like this comes up. I did bring public safety and traffic experts to the green. Chief Whitell, who is our public safety director, Kevin Eklund, who was our resident trooper and has the access of the entire Connecticut State Police, and myself, where I'm no public safety expert, but I'm not too bad. And the safety of having the sidewalk down the middle, to them was wholly approved and deemed completely safe. So on the east side, even more so. And then obviously I asked them both that, and they obviously agreed.
Okay, thank you. I think that's it for me for questions for now. I'll think if there's any more, but I'll shoot back over to Councilor Murray.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate Tammy. Thank you, Tammy, for providing that additional reference. I have the honor of being the liaison to the Historic District Commission, and have been involved in and listened to a number of conversations that they have. Some of the questions that have come up, I'd like the opportunity to see if we could respond to them. Maybe right now, if I could ask those questions, is that okay?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay, so one of the questions that has come up and I've heard from residents is, why aren't we considering just repairing the existing historic stones and to use those to make the green accessible? Do you want to comment on that, Ryan?
I do.
Thank you.
That does absolutely nothing to provide access to the green. The first day of the,
Please speak up.
I'm sorry. It does absolutely nothing to improve the access to our Tolland green, to fix or repair and raise those sidewalks. It would improve access in other places in town, but the sidewalk on the green does both. So that was the decision. When maybe it was day one of the farmer's market, when a deacon in town that is on a church here comes up to me in a wheelchair and says, I can't access that even with the mat. I have a problem with that. And I'm sorry. And so fixing the sidewalks on each side of the green, while a great idea and well intended, does not help get our people with disabilities to our 65 events that we've had since I've been here on the green.
Thank you. What about the consideration of using stone dust instead of concrete? Can we clarify? I know that has been a topic of discussion, but could you clarify one more time the decision to move forward with concrete instead of stone dust?
Sure. Well, let's just start right out with what's best for the ADA folks. Let's start out with what's best for what the state of Connecticut did. They didn't put down stone dust. They put down 5 foot wide sidewalks for ADA access. I'm not gonna, I did not want to, and this is in discussion with everyone in council and others as well, to lower the standards of accessibility to the green to a substandard material that's gonna require constant maintenance, that'll have constant problems, and if there's a rainy or snowy event, it's gonna be difficult as opposed to concrete. There's a reason why concrete is the best possible service for our people with limited disabilities, and that's why we chose it. Some of the pictures that the HDC president sent herself in relation to stone dust, unbeknownst to her, perfectly illustrated why we didn't want to do it. If you look at those pictures again in the background, you can see the weeds and the disrepair that they're in. Stone dust, not an option.
Thank you. And I want to again, thank you for the diligence that you've put into bringing in other stakeholders are knowledgeable about various applicable issues, one of which I believe is the State Historic Preservation Office. I know there's been some concerns about putting sidewalks down the green and that impacting the historic status of the green. Was the SHPO office able to provide you with any feedback on that concern?
Categorically, succinctly, they laughed at that and said that would never happen. It would not be delisted for putting a delisted, as they put it, which has got to be some historic district term, in relation to any sort of devaluing of the historic nature of our green. It would not in any way affect any grants that we would ever get on the green to have an ADA sidewalk down there, outside on our green.
And I know, again, I had the advantage and the honor of being at the most recent Historic District Commission meeting. There was some concern that the Historic District Commission and historic properties along the green would no longer be eligible for grants or will have been denied grant applications due to the news that we're going to put a sidewalk down the green. Can you speak in your work with the town's grant manager? Have we been denied grant applications due to the sidewalk plans?
Absolutely not, nor going on the advice of SHPO and the circuit rider. No, that is categorically false, and it's upsetting to hear people trumpeting that around that we would somehow lose grant money or grant opportunities because we allowed the handicapped folks on our green. That's laughable. And I know of no examples in these United States where that did occur and happened. And we went over this with our attorney as well. No reasonable explanation could even be thought of that how that could possibly happen.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And again, thank you for the due diligence there. I just wanted to make sure I know, I've heard you say 65 events have happened since you started and you've been here just a little bit over a year. Do you envision this, this plan for a sidewalk interfering with any of the events or making any events that we might have on the green less accessible to anyone, whether they're able-bodied or not?
No, it would only, in my professional opinion, it would absolutely enhance it to all. I don't know anyone that's going to say, I'm not going to the green because there's a sidewalk. However, moving it to the east side at the request of the HDC president would limit access to events held on the west side of the green. Those are not a very high number. Sometimes your protests are on that side of the green, your demonstrations, I'm sorry. And the Harvest Fest, the scarecrows are on the west side of the green. For those events, I've talked over with our public works director and they will move the mat for those events. The mat is not ideal, very laborious in moving it, but it's the best we can do as opposed to putting a sidewalk down both sides of the green.
Thank you very much. It's very obvious to me that you've done a lot of collaboration with internal and external stakeholders. And this, I agree, was a priority that the council asked you to address. And I think you have certainly done a lot of work to get us to this point. So thank you very much. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Councilor Murray, and I'll turn over to the Councilor Councilor Luma.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a few other questions from Ms. Foley. Is the mat out there right now?
It is out there, as I stated before, you can't see it. You can't feel it. It's completely sunk in below the grass. We put it out there to allow access. It's a temporary mat to allow temporary, access for people with disabilities to the events that we're having on the green. It's been a perfect demonstration of why a temporary mat is not a long-term solution. It at this point has zero impact in assisting people with disabilities.
But the only reason I ask is I was out there this past Sunday, walking along there, and I saw sections of it, which I thought were like basically either destroyed sections or like, that were left behind, but so the whole thing is still out there. And
Yes,
so for us to move it, for Public Works, if they were gonna move it to a separate section, they'd have to pull that whole thing up out from under the ground, that anything that's buried over to like reuse it or
we
something.
don't know because I don't think we have not left it out that long ever before, right? So we don't know what kind of damage it's gonna do to the grass. And how hard it's gonna be, for them to pull up and what kind of damage it's done, to the temporary mat. That being said, I wanted to leave it out as long as we could to get as much use out of it, for the events that we have thus far this year had on the green. It's gonna need to come up for the Harvest Fest. It's gonna need to come up soon.
And then, as far as for the issue, that Ms. Marie brought up, as far as Bluestone. In fact, I think earlier this term, we actually went through a complete discussion, and there was actually proposals in a study regarding basically refurbishing the Bluestone. Didn't you, and you had those documents, correct?
Yes.
And how much was that, as an estimate, to replace those Bluestones? And that's just assuming that they're not destroyed while trying to lift them and balance them.
I didn't want to make those estimations myself. Councilman Yuba. I had Rob Zimans of Earthworks, who has a career in working with historical stone, come in together. We walked the green and looked at resetting some of those stones. Again, that would do nothing to provide access on the green. However, the feasibility of actually doing that to when you move one and start leveling it out to make all the other ones level within ADA, he, in his opinion, was nearly impossible within budget parameters under $1 million.
And I would just say that I think that the best estimate they've got was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 300,000, and that's just for leveling out a few of them. Were to redo the entire section.
Optimistic.
Yeah.
Was that in that when Robbie actually got out there and looked,
Right.
and he said the problem is you could do how much it is to level per square foot, but once you raise one or lower one, now the rest have to be in line within, I believe it's whatever the pitch is for ADA standards, and it was going to be a massive project.
And then that's assuming that it wasn't that when they're trying to do that, the bluestone doesn't break and have to be replaced, and then we'd have to try and find a similar historic bluestone.
Correct.
And how much is the proposal for the sidewalk here?
We're waiting on the final numbers. The one down the middle was around 200,000, I believe. And that was a 250, and that was with the old stamped concrete thought process, which is gone. So what was that? 5 feet. And 5 feet, yes, correct. Although we're going 8 inches now, so I think we're going to make that up. But we're in the 200,000 to 300,000 range. Plus, keep in mind we have the veterans area too.
And that was the veterans one is separate from the sidewalk.
Correct.
There was one other question, but I'll let it go. All right, thank you.
Councilman Yudichak, are you all set?
I think I can go up to 10 minutes.
Okay, Councilman Nuccio, ask you to unmute.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I think Lou pretty much kind of said what I was going to say. But Katie, you had mentioned the bluestone, and I know we had been talking about that even before we got the estimate from Robbie. So we looked at that. We talked to DPW last time they looked at it. We looked at all the old documents and stuff, and it would have been extremely cost prohibitive and not necessarily successful in the long run, because the stone is so fragile and so old. We really don't want to mess with it too much. Not only that, we would also have to, I believe, get rights from all of the homeowners, because that is technically all on their property, with the exception of, I think, a little bit of it. But there was a lot of work that was put into looking at, can we refurbish the stones that are there, because we were all very conscious of it. But Brian brought up a really good point. that would have given us a more, I don't even want to say ADA accessibility because those stones are really uneven as we talked about at one point. Even each stone individually had anomalies in it that made it not flat. But it would have given, a flatter surface on the sides of the roads where the houses are, but it would not have increased usability of the green, which I think is a pretty big delimiter between what we're doing and what we thought we were going to do back then. So there was a lot of consideration put into reusing those stones. I just don't think that it's a feasible option. And we've looked at it more than once in that perspective. So I kind of feel like we've beaten that one up a bit. And what we're doing now, I think, is probably just a better option, in my opinion. Hope that helps.
All right, thank you, Councilman Nuccio and Councilman Yudichak.
No, it's just gonna be really a quick general statement. So I'm the liaison for the Commission with People with Disabilities, and we're all excited that this seems to be going in a good direction for our community. I don't actually like the term ADA folks because they're not folks. That's just a
Speak up a little.
I was just saying that I'm on the liaison for the Commission with People with Disabilities. And glad it's moving forward, and the Commission with People with Disabilities is okay with the change. They're happy that there's been some sort of compromise. It's a good start for our town, and that was just my last comment. Was I don't like the term ADA folks. They're not folks. They're human beings. They're people. That one. That's a personal thing. I just think we need to be very conscious when we use certain words and how it does. We can affect others.
Thank you, Councilman Yudichak. Councilman Luba, were you all set with your follow-up question?
Yes, well, that was, Ms. Nuccio brought it forward as far as the issue regarding easements and property owners and us having to do that. If we did anything else, like the Bluestone, or there was other proposals about putting it, other sidewalks in other locations, but that would all have to, there was a lot of issues regarding easements and rights of way and other things like that, so she covered it. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council. But actually, your thought, just before we open to the public, actually one other question. This one is for Scott, just to clarify. I know it's been asked several times, but you are not responsible for cleaning up those sidewalks when there's winter storm events. Is that correct?
Which sidewalks are those?
The Bluestone.
No, we only clean up to the property line here.
But you would be if this goes through and becomes a municipally responsible sidewalk on the east side.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Are there any other questions from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
So moved by Councilor Luba, seconded by Councilman Murray, and we'll do a roll call vote. So Councilor Murray.
Aye.
Councilor Luba.
Aye.
Councilman Yudichak.
Aye.
Councilman Nuccio. Oh, I asked you to unmute. You might have just unmuted yourself, remuted yourself. See if that goes again. All right. Second time.
I'm like locked out of everything here.
And I am an aye, so the public hearing is now open. So we'll turn over to Councilman Murray to do a report of public testimony.
Yes, we have received through the town council email. Sorry, I'm doing math, 21, 27, 29 emails have come in regarding sidewalks on the green in the last 2 weeks. And all of those emails in their entirety will be sent to town hall tomorrow morning to be included in our minutes packet. The very quick top line summary of those is there were generally 21 emails in favor of having sidewalks on the green, 6 emails against, and 2 emails with comments that did not take a stance one way or the other.
All right, thank you, Councilman Murray. So with that, we'll move to public participation, and similar to the participation earlier on, we'll start with Zoom and then we'll go in public and go back and forth until folks all have a chance to speak. So we'll start with Celeste Seneschal. Oh, and also just as a quick reminder to state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Celeste Seneschal, 19 Joe Sabbath Drive. To the town council, I provide my input to you today, not just as a resident, but as a voice echoing the sentiments of generations that have cherished our historic green. For 300 years, this green has been a beacon of our town's heritage, spirit, and unity. We pride ourselves on being an inclusive community. Our town already boasts 2 ADA parks, and our historic green itself is already ADA compliant. Thus, it's not a question of whether we prioritize accessibility, but of how we go about it. Let's reflect upon the broader needs of our community. Within the vicinity of our historic green are 2 low-income housing communities that serve our elderly and handicapped citizens. A significant portion of their lives could be enhanced by redirecting these funds towards improving sidewalk access to the town's only grocery store. This not only ensures a direct tangible benefit to those most in need, but it does so without jeopardizing the green's historic status. By placing a permanent sidewalk on this iconic space, we risk more than just aesthetics and historical recognition. We stand to lose critical historic grants that have been instrumental in preserving the properties around the green. I urge this council to think not just of the present, but of the legacy we aim to leave behind. Let's channel our resources in ways that uphold the integrity of our history while ensuring practical and inclusive benefits for all residents. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Celeste. And then we'll move into in-person, Susan.
Susan Luther Hughes, 95 Tolland Green, Chair of the Commission on People with Disabilities. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to provide public input on this important issue. First, I'd like to read a statement submitted by the Commission on People with Disabilities that was submitted to both the Town Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission for everyone's benefit here tonight, and then I'm going to provide some personal comments. Our statement read, "We, the Tolland Commission on People with Disabilities, offer our strong support for the proposed plan to add sidewalks on the Tolland Town Green to meet ADA accessibility standards. Accessibility means that everyone, regardless of ability, has access. A shared principle that we hope all stakeholders, including property owners and the Historic District Commission, can agree on is the basic premise that our historic town green reflects and expresses the values of all our town residents. Improving accessibility is something we can proudly express through design choices as a visible, tangible expression of our town's values. History happens continuously, and evolution is reflected in many ways, including architecture, infrastructure, and the recognition of the ADA. We advise that these proposed changes be made in a way that are engineered to last and be enjoyed by everyone for the next 300 years of our town's history. We support and applaud the efforts of the town manager and the town council to quickly move forward with a plan to meet accessibility obligations and unequivocally reject any proposals from stakeholders that prioritize aesthetics over equal access or places and things over people. Respectfully, the Tolland Commission on People with Disabilities." Now, I want personally to recognize the hard work, time, and passion that everyone here has put into this issue. And I want to thank you, the Town Council, for your time and patience and open-mindedness as we have looked at this issue from every angle, every which way. And both sides have no doubt inundated you with opinions and facts of the matter as we each see them. That said, there is only one thing left to do here, and that is to approve the plan before you, which includes, I want to add, the assumption of a paved surface versus the temporary grass mats, which plan was designed and submitted by the Historic District Commission and now has the full support of the Commission on People with Disabilities. It's now time in Tolland's history to make a statement that gives people with disabilities, along with everyone else, the ability to safely travel around the green and access all it has to offer. As I have stated to you many times before, when you make something accessible for a person with a disability, you make it accessible for everyone. It's not just people with disabilities who will use this sidewalk. It will truly be an overall improvement to our town green for everyone to use and enjoy all year round, as it should be. This is history that we can all be proud of. This represents a tangible reflection that our town values all of its residents equally. And it's simply the right thing to do. Thank you.
Susan. We'll go back to Zoom with Kate Ballo. I'll ask you to unmute.
Hi there, Kate Ballo, 80 Tolland Green. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment regarding the proposed addition of an accessible sidewalk on our town's beautiful green. The green is a treasured historical landmark and destination in our town, and making the green accessible for all is necessary for the whole community to fully enjoy the space. I recently had the opportunity to hear more about the mission of our country's national parks. And I was reminded that the preservation of the parks is not just about protecting the beauty of the land for generations to come. It is about preserving the land for the enjoyment of all. Our little green is, of course, no national park. However, it is, in fact, on the National Park Service's National Register of Historic Places as a nationally registered landmark, as you know. And as such, I do believe that our community has a responsibility to preserve and protect its practical use for the enjoyment of all of our community members today and for generations to come. The latest draft plan for walkways on the green from July 24th, 2023 incorporates feedback from a variety of groups and citizens in our community and accomplishes a great balance of planned practical accessibility with opportunity for enjoyment. Moving the proposed walkway closer to the carriage roads and winding around some trees creates a peaceful path for all that all community members can enjoy. Distancing the walkway further from the busier state roads with the faster traffic increases safety for the walkway and makes it more pleasant. And ending the sidewalk on the North Green just after the parallel historic stones and also makes so much sense. Additionally, reducing the width of the walkway to 4 feet helps to preserve as much green space as possible without limiting access for anyone, which is great. As a direct neighbor and community member, I am wholly in favor of the July 24th draft plan moving forward with the walkways closer to the east side of Green. And I do have one note about it. I am hopeful that the scope of the plans could be expanded to include the green in its entirety, as the green actually stretches all the way up to Dunhill Road. Increasing the scope of the project would allow the town to increase safety for all community members of every ability by creating the possibility to install a crosswalk on the busier section of Tolland Green, which is that part of the road that turns into Old Stafford where cars go really fast. As you might recall, the sidewalk actually moves from one side of the road to the other at that area, and there's currently no crosswalk at that space, which is a little bit dangerous. And a lot of people, as you know, park at St. Matthew's to go up to events on the green. So if we want to truly make the whole thing accessible, I think it would be a great idea to address that. Additionally, that might include addressing some of the regular concrete sidewalks that are currently in place on both sides of the road over there. As a resident in that area, I'd be very happy to wave away whatever I need to wave away to make sure that sidewalk be widened, to make sure that everybody could fully use it. I know our town in the past has had some experience somewhat recently with larger projects where we've said, it would have been great if we could have included certain things. I want to be sure that as we're thinking about these ARPA funds, that we're leveraging them fully and making sure that we finish this project to completion so that it's completely accessible as possible. So anyway, thank you for the opportunity to comment. Let's do it all. Let's do it right. And thank you for your time and for your service.
Thank you very much, Kate. All right, we'll continue with in-person participation. Anyone from the public would like to approach the table?
Mitch Stat, 100 Tolland Green. I actually just want to comment and say that I agree with everything that Kate mentioned. Also, someone on the green, it would be awesome if the sidewalk went a little bit farther as well. And that road is actually quite dangerous. And as someone with small children, and there's other people with small children, there's every reason to believe that the sidewalk should, again, have some sort of recognition of not only being on the green, but elements of safety as well. Again, in terms of the construction, it definitely seems as if the town manager and the council here has actually gone a long way to appease the historic district committee again, of which I live in. So it does seem like the compromise that has been met is something that makes a lot of sense for not just the town, but also the historic district, especially if this is the plans that they've themselves committed. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we will continue with Zoom and Brenda Belusi. I'll ask you, Jeff, or I'll ask them you.
Hello, thank you. Let me pull over my little sheet here. It got covered. All right, Brenda Felucci for Laurel Ridge Road. I am also the chair, I guess, of Explore Tolland, and I help with the Tolland Green Market. So I just want to give you some background information on what works and what doesn't work, and hopefully this will help make some people understand what we are experiencing on the green. So for the farmers market, the red and white side of the green, the part from the center where the evergreen is, all the way down to the red and white, where the sidewalk is right now, it works very well for us because there is room for trucks and tents on one side of that market or one side of that sidewalk. It allows for the vendors to be able to quickly restock their supplies to their tent from their trucks. The temporary sidewalk is more stable for electric chairs and many strollers and walkers. The slanted curbs on the green, that's from the center of the green toward the Arts of Tolland side. They allow our vehicles to drive up, or nearly any vehicle to drive up on the green and allow our vendors access. I'll go to what doesn't work in a second. And I also want to say that having electricity on the green is very helpful for our vendors. And access to that, no matter where we put the sidewalk, is beneficial. What we're finding that doesn't really work, on the Arts of Tolland side of the green, we know that side of the green tapers. And right now the sidewalk's in the center. We cannot fit a tent and a vehicle on one side or the other very comfortably. Many of our vendors use large pickup trucks and SUVs, and it doesn't quite fit. The grass covered sidewalk, we know where it is, it's tiring to walk on for many. It can cause you to lose some energy as you go along, and it doesn't offer any confidence in its stability. Also, what doesn't work on the red and white side, it doesn't have a slanted curve so that our trucks can drive up. Most of the cars can't. Some of the larger heavy duty pickups can be able to drive up. I arrive at the market early and I drive up onto the green at the red and white side and drive down the entire length of the green to park right in front of the red and white. It feels very illegal and it feels fun to do that. The temp sidewalk is not really visible, so new users can't find it. I grew up in New Britain, and the rule that we had with my mom when we were walking around is we had to stay on the sidewalk. You can't tell your kids to stay on the sidewalk. A visible sidewalk would be great. People with canes also can't find the sidewalk right now. We can find it pretty easily after a heavy rain because there's a lot of mushrooms, but who wants to walk on mushrooms, right? Also, the temp sidewalk has its drawbacks when it's overgrown. Manual wheelchairs can't navigate it. Canes fall off the side or might hit an unstable spot. And walkers without wheels find a hard time using the temporary sidewalk. In my experience, being at the Tolland Green Market nearly every single week, we have residents who have shown up once and were discouraged because they did not have access to the market and haven't come again. We have disenfranchised these citizens. These are people who have used, I've seen in wheelchairs and walkers, and people who have used oxygen for walking. My wish list is a visible, flat, and easy to access sidewalk that leaves room for our long vehicles and tents to be parked on one side. I want to be my other part of the wish list is I want those who are differently abled than me to be able to be a vendor. We do not have an option for someone who cannot stand or sit or vend from a grass lot to be able to be part of our Tolland Green Market. We had one vendor who started, did 1 week, and she was too tired and has not come back. So at the moment, we cannot accommodate vendors who are differently abled than myself. I also want to note that once we do have more than 30 vendors for the Tolland Green Market, and we have hit that at least once so far, we're going to need to use another section of the green. And once we go to that other section of the green, whoever we put over there will not be accessible for everybody. So those were my comments. I want the green to be accessible. I do not envy how you guys have to come to this decision. I thank you for all of your work and due diligence.
All right, thank you, Brenda. All right, we'll continue with in person, and yep, in front.
Leslie Pryor, 421 Old Stafford. You're gonna have to excuse us. I just came out of a martial arts class. I apologize. So I have been an ally of this battle for ever since it pretty much started. About 4 years ago, when this started coming up, I spoke with somebody in charge of the National Historic District Society or Commission, and they referred me to the one in the state. I had several long conversations with both. Were referred to several articles about how different states and different towns have managed to make accessible historic areas without the historic areas losing that historic character or being shunned by some way away from grants. It happens in Washington, D.C. all of the time. Their buildings are accessible. They've gone so far as to bury historic sidewalks in order to preserve that and yet put in a ramp to make it accessible. So the outrage that I've heard, because people don't think this will destroy the green, seems a little bit overblown to me. When we're talking about this, a lot of the discussion that's come up has surrounded the market or the events that happen on the Tolland Green, which are very important. But people have pointed out that the temporary sidewalk will suffice. Well, it's been proven that that does not suffice all the time. It's become overgrown. In bad weather, it can't be laid out. And I would argue that we can all access that green whenever we want, whether it's during an event or whether we just want to go to the green and sit down, or we want to go to the green and we want to walk a dog, or we want to go to the green and do whatever. We want to stand in the middle of it because it's part of our town. So having to wait for an event to access our green diminishes people with disabilities who are differently abled, cannot access the grassy surface as easily as we can, places them at a disadvantage. They cannot access the green whenever they want to. They're forced to ride around in the street. There's a gentleman I've seen with a dog. His dog goes on the green. He does not go on the green. It's been argued that the cutouts were what allowed the green to be accessible. Well, that allows you to get on the green, but that's about all it does. It allows you to go from the street onto the green. So I argue that we need to make the entire green accessible. The ADA allows historic district commissions to have a little more leeway with the rules than perhaps a regular business might have. They allow them to take some liberties that maybe other businesses might not be able to. That does not mean that they're allowed to just disenfranchise an entire group of people. There are all sorts of architectural choices that can be made, beautiful materials that can be used that fit with the time period, that can be made to look just like those slate sidewalks that are there, that would not destroy the historic feel of the green. So I mean, not to drag on too much longer, but we're looking at something that is, it's a thing. It is a thing. It's an important thing to a lot of people. But all of us should be able to visit historic areas and be able to enjoy the past that's represented by that, be able to enjoy it in the present, and be able to set it up so that people in the future can also enjoy the green who are disabled or able-bodied. So I would really like to see this go through with sense of architectural integrity for the historic time that the green represents. I don't want to just see concrete slabs thrown down. I would like to see a nice job being done, but I do want it to happen because there's a lot of people, taxpayers in this town who cannot access the green right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Move back over to Zoom with John. I'll ask you to unmute.
Steve, can you hear me? Thank you. I just,
Yes.
Sean Hughes, 95 Tolland Green. I'd just like to show my support for the sidewalk proposal that the HDC has put in. And I'd also like to tell the council and town manager big kudos for all the time and effort they put into this process. I think you should be applauded for all the work. And once again, just support the sidewalk on the green. Thank you.
Good done. All right, go back to in person.
Speak up. Speak up.
Sorry, what's that?
I said, speak up.
All right, thank
Can't hear
you.
you.
All right, so we'll go to the gentleman up here.
Sure. My name's Ryan Rucker. I live at 42 Eaton Road in Tolland. I've lived here for about 20 years now, so I've been a taxpayer for 20 years. I have some personal and professional experience here. I'm the ADA coordinator for the city of Southbridge, Massachusetts, where I currently work. I also serve on their disability commission. In that capacity, I do have some experience securing grant funding for various projects for this community. I don't see any impact whatsoever, and I agree with what Town Manager Foley said regarding any impact on grant funding. I don't, based on my personal and professional experience, I don't see that happening here. Again, I also provide disability training for the Connecticut State Police. I've been doing so for about 5 years. I'd like to thank all of you personally, as a father of a disabled child, all the time that you've taken, Mr. Foley, you getting harnessed with this right from the get-go. I appreciate all the work on this. It's going to affect my family personally and professionally. I think all of you are doing the right thing, but I appreciate you listening to all the arguments presented. But again, I just want to say thank you. All of
course. All right, we'll go to Yannick Moeller. I'll ask you to unmute.
Hello, I have something prepared, but I also want to just point out to the sign that's above Brian's head. All are welcome. Hello, I'm Yannick Mahler. I'm a Tolland resident. I'm a father of an autistic child. I would like to speak a few words about the sidewalk in question in the historic center of town. It saddens me to learn that this is going on for 4 years and it's not already there. I was born and raised in Schleswig, a small city in the very north of Germany, about 30 miles south of Denmark. I grew up in a small neighborhood founded around 1000 AD, known for its sole fishing rights on its adjacent waters, all the way to the Baltic Sea. Those rights were granted to the people of said neighborhood by the Danish king Christian I in 1480 and honored to this day. I know historic places very well, having lived in a small fisherman house with all its old beams and walls. You have to accept change. The house and the streets will change. It has for over 1,000 years, and it will continue to do so. I look at our town green and its houses, and I see driveways with asphalt. Those were not there when those houses were built. Electricity, sewer systems, water pipes, all the things are not originally intended to be there. But why are they there? Comfort? Safety? Convenience? These are all the same things the sidewalk will give to all members of our community that I like to call my new home. So let me ask, is Tolland stuck in the beginning? Or are we ready to let Tolland history continue by doing the right thing? Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Jan. All right, we'll return to in-person participation. And I believe I see a hand raised towards the back on the right side. Is that Ms. Bach up there? All right, thank you.
Kathy Bach, 255 Tolland Stage Road. I too have a statement to read representing the Tolland history. It's a combined statement in conjunction with the Tolland Historical Society and the Tolland Green Historic District Commission. But I do have some personal comments, and perhaps I should start with my personal comments first, because there are a few things I'd like to correct for the record before I read the other statement. So I'll read as Kathy Bach, 255 Tolland Stage Road for the clerk. And it's difficult because I will be going against some of the folks here, people that I respect, people who are my neighbors, people who've done a lot of research on their own, people whose kids I've worked with. But I'm doing this, I'm making the comments because as a longtime resident, as a historian, it is my responsibility from the organizations I represent as well to provide, and it is incumbent as from the ADA statutes to provide all persons equal access and an equal experience. And equal experience is the big thing here. And for that reason, that little tiny slice that's left of Tolland Green is what I'm going to be speaking to. We're here because we shouldn't have come this far in this discussion. The town council and the town council before you shouldn't have let it get this far. That is a piece of registered history. We shouldn't be making changes to it. If you were in Washington, DC, you wouldn't be changing any national parks there. If you were in Pennsylvania, you wouldn't be changing Gettysburg. You wouldn't be touching them. They're sacred ground. This is older. This is more sacred. This is more hallowed. And if you really understood your history of Tolland, you would understand it generally is much more hallowed than those places. So we really shouldn't have been doing any of this discussion. We don't have sidewalks through all those places. We don't ask them to disturb their sacred bodies or memories, because their places, which are much more extensive, this tiny strip is all we have left of our beginning, our essence. It tells our story. It tells about the men and women who fought to build the community, who went to war to preserve our freedoms. It tells all about our kids and what they have here and the people who did that. I never said I wanted a sidewalk. I don't think Mrs. Marziello said that either. We came with compromised options because a concrete strip down the center was absolutely abominable. And during the process, we learned by going through statutes that we don't have to put anything on a registered landmark. A registered landmark out there, anything, nothing. So I want to put the record straight on that. What I said I know you've been discussing this for years. 1 year ago, you asked commission to get involved. Just 1 year ago, you asked for the commission that you folks appoint and the people before you appointed. We're supposed to be giving you advice. We're supposed to do the research. You've been talking about it and thinking about it and planning it. 1 year ago, you brought in your advisors. And we're backpedaling and trying to catch up and trying to figure out
And you told us, oh, we got to compromise and we got to talk about the slate, we got to talk about the granite. And the sidewalks on the perimeter, you had us going in all kinds of directions and being all kinds of crazy. When all we really should have been doing was looked at the ADA statutes to see we shouldn't have been doing anything on that piece of property. We should be looking at something because we respect everybody and we want to give everybody equal access. And then ding, 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 my head goes off and said, wait a minute, 195 project came through here and we fought like crazy on the commission because they wanted to have those silly sidewalks at their crosswalks, which we can take up, by the way, because they had to make 8 access points by law, 8 access points on the green for ADA. They said, well, it's a green, it's grass, that's access, that's code, you're done. We are compliant, ladies and gentlemen. We are totally ADA compliant. So we meet code, we are meeting the law. Now, do we want to do more? Yeah, I think we probably should sit around and talk about it. Do we have to put a sidewalk there? No, we don't. In fact, we can take up those crosswalk sidewalks, which we didn't take up with the state at the time, we should have. Because that is a historic spot out there. But when they have a signal or a stop sign crossing, they require in their little check boxes that there is some pavement, concrete put down. So getting back to my personal statement, which I'm still on, and I'm taking up your time. In the office, Mr. Foley one day, in between some of the things he stated in his comments, he had a meeting with Jody and I, and he said, really, ladies, is this the hill you want to die on? And I took a pause at that. And I thought, wait a minute. And I shook my head. I think Jody, you did too. And it was, yeah, this is the hill. Not me personally that I'm going to die on, but this is the hill that this community is going to die on. We're going
Kathy,
to take care of everybody.
just interject from, can you please, when you're speaking, you're executive to the council, just direct the
I'm
comments
sorry.
directly to us.
I'm sorry, well,
It just seems as though you're speaking to the public versus the council.
I'm
for the
so
purpose of
sorry.
the hearing.
well, it is a public hearing and.
No.
Just are part of the group too. Yeah, it's the hill that I think we need to die on for everybody's sake, because that is the only green we have. And let me clarify one other thing under this section, public remarks. It's green. It's not a park. We don't put concrete down. We don't put lights on it. We don't put benches and pots of plants. It's not a park. We've got those in town. And I respect that, we need to, and Brenda Faluzzi brought up some points, some good points, that we need to make things accessible. But I walked the historic district at the end of last week with one of the other members of the Historical Society, and we talked to neighbors. And they're like, well, if you put a sidewalk there, how are you gonna keep them on? You're gonna get a sidewalk police? And I was listening to Brenda talk, and I thought, it's true, if we have more access for vendors, and how are they gonna get to this vendor and that vendor, if we've got the sidewalk? How are we gonna keep them on the sidewalk, get them getting to them? Are we really gonna have to do something different? Are we getting so big that we really need to move some of our activities off the green? That's a shame, but maybe we've got to be thinking a little bit more logically about what we're doing with our programs on the green, and not so much about making the sidewalk that may be permanent if we put your plan on, that's not going to really service the programs you've got on the green. It's grass, folks. It's grass. But it's historic grass. And not everybody's going to always be able to be on the grass. My arthritis isn't going to keep me on that grass forever either. And a sidewalk isn't going to get me to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, where I want to do it on the green. I'm going to have to accept that fact. Anyway, there are a couple of other points that I need to state personally.
So just as a quick point of note, average resident has been about 5 minutes. There's
I
not
know.
necessarily a strict time limit. so-
And I was waiting for you guys to even open the public hearing, it took an hour. So,
That's fair.
and I'm really glad for the time, because I was told that you weren't gonna listen. These are members that said that your minds were already made up. I was called hostile, and I don't think I am. I was reading statute, ADA statute, when I was talking at meetings before this. I was even told that all the votes were in, that this was a waste of time. And, I hope it's not. I hope you really are listening. Anyway, that was, I guess, my 2 minutes plus. Let me read the combined statement. The Green was a center for early founders for militia exercises, sending our soldiers to war and bringing them home again, however they returned. It was the hub for our town services before the Great Sleep in the mid-1800s, where doctors, lawyers, and clergymen, blacksmiths, innkeepers, shopkeepers were in charge. It was the great turnpike crossroads from New York to Boston, from Springfield to the coast. And later in the summer, it was a summer destination and then a residential neighborhood. It's still a hub, but now it was for war rationing and plane spotters and for air raid centers. There were weddings, funerals, and annual homecomings on the Green. Today, this 1/4 mile of registered historic land is our center and the envy of many Connecticut communities and historical groups, because Tolland knew and understood its value then and now. This 1/4 mile long slice of land has breathed life for 100 or 300 plus years, is life of Tolland history. That's longer than any of the places I mentioned earlier. This is not a thing. It's the essence of our town. It mourns our struggles and it rejoices in our triumphs. It's our constant, it's constantly in a constantly changing world. It's 300 years of our people's history. And I'm going to quote the purpose of the Historic District Commission. It is the purpose of the Historic District Commission to preserve and protect the distinctive characteristics and appearances of the Tolland Green and the buildings which surround it, while respecting the rights and wishes of those whose property is within the district. It is the intent of that chapter in our code that requires set forth to be construed and with these purposes in mind and to be administered with common sense. That's why we mentioned that thing about the sidewalk and how it really serves when everything moves around on the Green. Tolland Green is a registered historic site within a registered historic district in the town, state, and federal level. The Historic District Commission was voted in place by the townspeople and duly appointed by the town council. It has statutory responsibilities to protect the landmark. Number 2, according to state statutes and federal guidelines, the town planned sidewalk is considered structure, and it's clearly in the realm of responsibility of the Historic District Commission. 3, the State Historic Preservation Office has stated that the sidewalk would constitute a structure in the historic Green. As of 8/7/23, our town attorney has rendered an opinion that the sidewalk is not a structure. And he uses a different statute than I was looking at and to defend his decision. So we have competing statutes and competing decisions on that. Number 4, the issue of ADA accessibility and accommodation was addressed in the 195 road project. I think I mentioned that to you. I've already mentioned the 8 access points. Number 5, the municipal sidewalk on the Green will no longer meet the historic definition, allow the Green to maintain that definition of an 18th and 19th century Green befitting the neighborhood or the historic registration of the town and its neighbors. And this goes to the comments that people have made about grants. 3 grant applications by the Historic Society have negatively been impacted financially this summer since our conversations with state. And I can attest to that, and I will discuss the finances with the manager privately later on. I was appalled because we asked the question with him of SHPO, and we were told that we would get the grants, but we were dinged on 3 different occasions. So they came in smaller, and they were all grants that had minimums, and we got less than the minimum in all 3 cases. So yes, when historic money is hard to get and hard to give, when you are not going to play by the rules, you get punished. Yes, the town can put a municipal sidewalk anywhere it wants, according to one statute, but it's not just any public land out there. A fixed sidewalk, then a movable one, will interfere with the town's current programs. And anyway, we've already talked about that. We support using the mesh and continuing to do that. Tolland is fortunate to have a registered landmark where everyone can enjoy the same historic experience. Please join us, both organizations, the Society and the Historic District Commission. Thank you for your time. I'll give this to the clerk. Also, for your edification, this past weekend, Tolland High School's first 5 graduating classes were in town. They were very upset about, and they were not happy about this. They asked that I tell you that all 200 plus of them were not in favor of putting a sidewalk on the green. I did have people stopping in at the museum this weekend. Of the people that stopped by, I have about, I don't know, 30, 40 signatures. This is not a petition. This is just people who said, we want to say something or write a letter or something. And these are about 40 people who just say they don't want to say. This is not anything official, not legal, it's not binding. It's morally in your mind, just people who just wanted you to know they weren't happy. And I'll just give this to the clerk.
Thank you, Mrs. Bob.
Thank you. And I'll get out of your face.
You're good. Thank you for your participation. We'll go to next Nicole Oswald, and then I saw I believe Mr. Freeman was next in public. So I'll ask Nicole to unmute.
Good evening. I'm Nicole Oswald, 314 Grant Hill Road. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight in support of the Town Green Sidewalk Project. I advocate for the construction of a permanent accessible sidewalk so that everyone in our community has equal access to our grounds and activities with no exceptions and no one excluded. I love living in Tolland. I love the historic small town charm, our Benton homestead, our town green, and historic buildings and houses are what makes Tolland a vital community with a unique identity. Everyone here tonight can agree that appreciation of our history is so important. We all share the goal of wanting to preserve what makes Tolland special. I wonder if in the 1700s, when our town green was founded, would I, a woman, even have been able to speak at a town meeting, such as this council meeting tonight? As we reflect on Tolland's historical value, we face the reality that in the time when our community built the green, our community also sanctioned the discrimination and exclusion of people because of their religion, their disability, their gender, or their race. If we don't act, if we don't change, that legacy perseveres in our very own town green today. I believe as we contemplate this decision, we should ask ourselves, what precedent does Tolland want to face? What does Tolland want to set as we face the crossroads of discrimination and progress? How can Tolland maintain its character and charm while learning from our history? The answer is to build the sidewalk, to choose equal access for everyone over the continued exclusion of disabled members of our community, to keep Tolland's history alive by providing everyone access to the town green with no exceptions and no exclusions. Let's do the right thing and create a legacy as a town that chooses to adapt and evolve so that every single member of our community is included at the town green. Thank you, and thank you so much to the council members and everyone here that have done so much work before I've joined this conversation. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to speak at this hearing. Thank you very much.
Nicole. All right, and then Mr. Friedman, I believe your hand was raised right after Kathy, so you'll be next. And then we'll go to afterwards to.
My name is Ron Friedman, and I'm a member of the Commission on Persons with Disabilities, which is a term when I started in the field of rehabilitation, you would never heard. What you would have heard was disabled people. That's the way they used to refer to them. I've watched the history change from a time when there was never a thought of accessibility. Nothing was accessible. If you were in wheelchairs, you stay home. If you could make it into a classroom, it was somebody else's responsibility to make sure that happened, not yours. So I think the work that you're doing here is very important. And I know you've been working at it for 4 years. I'll tell you, the story of accessibility is over 60 or 70 years old. So you're new to it in this time. I listened to the people from the historic committee, and I've listened to the people on the accessibility committee. This piece of land that you are looking at has history, has meaning, has a story to tell. But its story is not over. Its story is not over. The men and women who went to war on your green came home and fought so that everybody would be equal. It's not always been that way for races and for people with disability. You have a moment, a time in history to change that now. When we leave this room this morning, tonight, there will be a historical record that's been recorded. And generations later will listen maybe to what you're hearing tonight. So you are part of history. It's your time now to make your mark on history. You must choose wisely from all that you have received. But never think you are not part of history. You are living history. That's all I want to say.
All right, thank you, Mr. Green. Appreciate it. Go to Zoom with Gail White. I'll ask you to unmute. After that, Sharon LaPlante is next for in-person.
Gail White, I'm Daniel Benton Homestead Museum Director, 156 Metcalf Road. And thank you for the opportunity to comment tonight. The town is to be commended for its commitment to making Tolland's most important character-defining feature and its oldest surviving structure accessible to everyone. This clearly indicates that the town recognizes how important the green is and how unique it is. Very few of the small number of Connecticut town greens that survive are as untouched as the Tolland Green. This has elevated it to National Register for Historic Places status and makes it the anchor property of the historic district. It is the most important character-defining feature and structure in the district. Changes to it change, sometimes irrevocably, the character of the district and therefore impact the character of the town. That is why it is critical to be cautious and thoughtful, to fully investigate and understand the impacts of any plan, and to consult with knowledgeable stakeholders. The Historic District Commission is fulfilling its duty as mandated by its enabling statute in working with you to provide guidance so that the best possible plan can be designed to improve the character-defining features of the green in the district to the benefit of the entire town. Tolland's founders were not the first people here. We know that this was a gathering place and a vital hunting and fishing place for the region's indigenous peoples, perhaps for thousands of years. This indigenous history, plus Tolland's position as a settlement of Hartford and Windsor in the early 1700s, and its growth as a regional crossroads and as the county seat, make it imperative that a complete archaeological survey of the green be completed before any plans can be finalized. depending on survey findings, full archaeological investigations may be required. I am confident that this will be included in your planning because you have demonstrated that you are aware of the important historical significance of the Tolland Green. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then move to in person with Sharon LaPlante.
Bonsoir, mes amis. Or, howdy folks. Okay, first of all, I'm gonna read the statement from the Tolland Historical Society. That was my assignment, so I'm gonna do that first. Okay. Statement from this Tolland Historical Society about the town green. The Tolland Historical Society joining with the Tolland Historic District Commission and opposing a plan to install a cement sidewalk on the historic town green. The historically registered town green was made ADA accessible during the Route 195 road project with 8 access points to cut into the granite curve, 5 on the south, 3 on the north. Plus, there is a flush on the side to the carriage road area of the curving on the north green. The society supports the full historic experience for all citizens by utilizing these access points to our registered green. The society supports the Historic District Commission in its duly appointed role as stewards charged to preserve and protect the distinctive characteristics and appearance of the Tolland Green and the buildings which surround it, while respecting the rights and wishes of those who own property within the district and to be administered with common sense. The society further supports the maintenance of the existing sidewalks around the perimeter of the green by leveling and edging the stone and repairing the buckled cement. It also supports the use of temporary mesh sidewalks during events on the green, which the town already has and purchased, and the PCC uses successfully. I just wanted to ask, I sent my email, I sent a letter by email. Did you get it?
Yes, it was received.
Everybody, did you read it?
Yes, it's been read and will be also incorporated into the records of the meeting minutes.
Okay. One thing I wanted to say too and add is that the Historic District Commission and the Historical Society, as far as I know, I mean, I'm speaking for them, you know, they can correct me or beat me up if I'm wrong. They never wanted a sidewalk on the green. Okay, none at all. Now, the mats that we have there, the mesh mats, you know, you may not be able to see them. That's because grass grows. There's grass on there. Grass grows, grass covers them up. Mow the lawn and voila, you'll be able to see them again. All right. And actually, Gail is correct in her report on the archaeology aspect of it. There's some digging over there by the Big Y. I contacted the state archaeologist. I emailed her, wrote to her, and actually went to her office, and I left messages all over the place. You're supposed to that area itself is upland from water, and there's a known archaic site there. So those builders should have gotten some clearance from the state archaeologist. She'll be speaking in Mansfield pretty soon. So I guess to get an answer from her, and she'll go there and take a look. I gotta go to the lecture, which I probably will do. But that's an important aspect. You gotta see what's under the grass there. It's 300 years old. So I'm sure that there'll be, well, there probably is something there, okay? And just one real quick note from personal note, that I don't think there's anybody in the Historic Society or the Genealogical Society or the Historic District Commission who doesn't want the Americans with disabilities or physical challenges, is what I like to say. We all support their access, which they do have, and they're being able to enjoy the green. So in able to enjoy the green, you gotta be on the green, you gotta be on grass. If you're on cement, you're not on the green. And if you put a sidewalk out there, then what's coming next? You're gonna have sidewalks, you're gonna have light poles, you're gonna have benches, you're gonna have potted plants, and voila, you have a park. It's about getting a park. It's not about a sidewalk. It's not just about the sidewalk out there. It's about you're gonna have a park. We don't need a park out there. If you wanna enjoy the green, living history, then you gotta be on the green. You gotta be on the living history. You gotta be on the cotton picking grass. It's not about a park. And this is what's gonna happen to it. All that is gonna be a park. Who wants a park in this town? Who wants a park over there? You gotta think, as Agatha Christie would say, use the little gray cells up here. Think about what's happening. Okay? This is a green, it's not a park. And that's exactly what it's gonna turn into. Exactly. And there it goes. And you can't reverse it. Because I don't know what town council is gonna say, okay, let's dig it up. Who's gonna do that? Once it's dug up, once it's gone, it's gone. So you better think twice about putting a sidewalk, because it's just not a sidewalk. Don't get fooled. Okay?
All right, thank you, Sharon. I don't have a vote.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, we'll go back to Zoom participation with Lisa Day Lewis. I'll ask you to unmute.
Hello, this is Lisa Day Lewis, 63 Tolland Green. And my husband and I sent a letter to the council stating our views on the sidewalk project, but I wanted to come on here and speak a little bit to what Kate Vallow brought up in regard to the green. I think it's what's commonly known as the extension. Some of you may know that a couple weeks ago, a car driving exceedingly fast down the Tolland Green extension crashed into the corner of my house, causing over $100,000 worth of damage, knocking it off its foundation, and also, potentially, endangering people in the house, as our clothing dryer was on the porch that was hit. So when considering the scope of this project, it would be very lovely if the town council could consider something in regard to the extension along the lines of speed bumps or rumble strips or something to slow down the traffic that is headed this way into the corner of my lovely home. And also in regard to the sidewalk that we're in favor of, some crosswalks that would help the people in wheelchairs come from this side of the green over to the sidewalk would also be lovely. Sometimes I'm walking to my son's bus stop and I'm asked by people in wheelchairs if I could help them on this side of the street. And it pains me if I'm rushing to the bus stop to have to turn down somebody in need of help. So in considering the large scope of the project, if there's some way to get over to the other side of the green from over in this here corner, that would be very lovely. I know sometimes historic greens have those lights that you can press a light and it sends like a blinking signal to cars that are approaching that they need to slow down in honor of crosswalks. So I think that would be a fabulous idea to consider as well. Anyway, that's my 2 cents, and happy to continue that conversation if anyone wants to come down here and scope out the corner. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Lisa, for your input. We'll return to in-person participation. Anyone like to raise their hand? Yes, gentleman over there in the corner.
Good evening, everyone. Dennis Carlson, 41 Tolland Green. I was happy to hear someone bring up about the safety issue. We want to attract more people to the green. I'm all for it. So ADA compliant, I'm all for it. One thing, it has to be done right. I mean, aesthetics do matter to the green. The other thing is safety. since let me back a little, you've been on this for 4 years. How long were they on this whole traffic calming situation that the state has done out here? Was that 10, 15 years? And it is a mess. Traffic is exceedingly fast. We've had 3 accidents where before, I don't think there were any accidents in that area. 2 of them went into a house. One of them, it was a T-bone coming out of 74 at that intersection. Like I said, speed, they don't obey. People do not obey the crosswalks. My wife last Halloween, she was in a traffic cone. She had to go out and stop traffic on Halloween to help people cross over to the green. The speed is excessive. It's supposed to be traffic calming. It's not. It's actually got me all riled up because all those cobblestones, they just drive right over them. 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. The plows going by. I'm getting off the subject, but no, safety really needs to be considered. If you're going to attract people, that road, the speed limit's got to come down. You've got to do something out there because it is a madhouse. It really is. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the input. All right, we'll continue with in-person participation. So if anyone, I see another, is that, yep.
Guys, I am Mary Pat Susie, 111 Torrey Road. I'm going to read, we were asked, I'm also the chair of Permanent Celebration Committee. And we were asked by Planning and Zoning to create a document about the plan and whether we had a chance to see it and look at it. So we developed this response to Planning and Zoning, and their meeting is in a couple of days. So I'm going to read this first, and then I'll just have a quick personal comment afterwards. This is Tolland Permanent Celebration Committee's response to Planning and Zoning questions concerning Town of Tolland plan for the sidewalks on Tolland Green. Tolland Permanent Celebration charge is issued by the Town of Tolland, and our charge is to recognize, accommodate, and foster pride, patriotism among the citizens of Tolland and our nation, our state, land, our town, and to demonstrate evidence thereof throughout the development of conduct of programs and activities. Tolland PCC organizes the holiday tree lighting, the scarecrow contest, the harvest fest, the Memorial Day parade. We help a little with the farmers market these days. All events involve Tolland Green. The holiday tree lighting is a community function that invites residents to attend a tree lighting ceremony for the tree located at the center of the South Green. Tolland PCC sets up tents, provides hot chocolate, cookies to the public. We provide and set up 2 tents, chairs for Santa and Mrs. Claus, lighting, decorations, tables, planters, 5-gallon jugs to house the hot chocolate. We drive onto the green to unload a full van of materials. A town-owned trailer is set up on the green as a stage. Public Works moves that trailer every year with a large vehicle onto the green. Traditionally, Rockburn, who sponsors our lights, will drive onto the green with a large ladder truck to redo the lights around the tree 2 weeks before our event. All set up is set off of Carriage Road. Now, Carriage Road is, and that's not in there, but Carriage Road has one side where you can enter, and then the other side is full granite. You can't really climb, you can't enter that way. The Scarecrow contest is facing Route 195. This is where we had temporary sidewalk installed so that residents can walk down the walkway to view the scarecrows. But the setup also allows for traffic driving up and down 195 to view scarecrows. Set up for the scarecrows includes individual businesses and organizations to set up their scarecrows, and most always it's trucks or vans loading onto the green to load towards 195 scarecrows. The Harvest Fest is set up on both sides of North and South Green, both greens, and encompasses all of the green. Last year's festival attendance tripled from the year before. The Memorial Day Parade route runs from Tolland Senior Center along 195 to Tolland Intermediate School. Residents view the parade from both the North and South Green and they sit facing Route 195. All event setups are unique, and after review of the town proposed sidewalks, we
concluded as a group that neither plan here really works for us. And I could get into detail why, but you can sort of see the gist. So as a result of the planning and zoning inquiry to Tolland PCC's committee regarding town plan for sidewalks on the green, all members agreeing to walkways should be considered along the perimeter on both sides of the green, north and south. Concrete walkways would not be appropriate for the historic district as well as practical for event setup. Vehicles must be able to drive onto the green and over concrete sidewalks. Hopefully they'll be okay. A portable sidewalk for us would really offer the best option. So history of the portable sidewalks as it pertains to PCC was that in September of 2021, we were setting up our Harvest Fest. We were asked by a private citizen to arrange ADA accessibility on the green. So there was an intern town manager, we had a talk, and then our committee discussed it. One of our committee members who had certifications in ADA accessibility researched and found the solution that we are currently using, and we are using it for the farmers market. The committee reviewed options, but settled on the green portable sidewalks because of its durability and unobtrusive appearance. Our decision considers Tolland's incorporation of 1715 and the fact that our green is federally recognized. Our town's identity is its age and charm. Closing statement is, our committee was not initially shown the sidewalk plans or asked for our opinion, so we thanked Planning and Zoning Committee for the opportunity to weigh in on this project. The Permanent Celebration Committee rejects both planned versions as it's drawn up here. The Permanent Celebration Committee is the only committee that is charged by the town to promote pride in our community, and our work exclusively involves the use of the green. This excerpt from the Town of Tolland's website is a description of our community. The description on our website, quality of life is a primary reason cited by residents for their decision to live in Tolland. The top 5 specific characteristics cited in descending order of importance were location, education system, town character of residential development, and open space. Most people characterize Tolland as a rural community today and would like to see those characteristics retained. Residents clearly want their valued quality of life retained as the town grows. And so that is, so that's the one thing. So in conclusion, basically, we really felt like the setup here, like the one concrete sidewalk down the middle, was really not going to work for us. We need something portable, or maybe we have to move our events. But so I'm going to leave it as that. That's our statement. It's getting put. I'll give a copy to you. My private conversations are, we've had a lot of talks with a lot of people here. Everybody has, and I think it's not us against them. It's definitely not that, but I think we can come to some compromises, but we just need more time. We just need more time to make sure that all the parties get a chance to have input and do what we need to do. And that's it.
Thank you, Mary Pat.
Thank you.
All right, continue with in-person participation. So if anyone would like to, Jody?
Jody Coleman Marciano. I am chair of the Historic District Commission. I have something to say about that. And then also I wanted to speak as a resident at 79 Tolland Green, who happens to have the best view in town of the green, because I can see right down the whole thing. And thank God nobody's at my house. Yeah. I wanted to just make a statement. This plan that is presented was made because I felt pressured and manipulated by our town manager when he threatened to put a 5-foot wide concrete structure down the middle of our historic nationally registered green. I felt, how can we do that? It's going to look like a giant zipper from an airplane. It's not going to help any of the Permanent Celebration Committee functions, as Mary Pat just said.
Concrete, as we know, does not last. It crumbles, it breaks. We have a high school that demonstrated it. We have schools that demonstrated it. We have foundations that demonstrated it. And how do we know 20 years from now, we're not going to have the same problem with this concrete that's getting proposed? So I just felt compelled to come up with an alternate plan just to show the community that we don't have to settle on the one and only plan our town manager presented. We have options. The green belongs to the community, and the community should have input in what accessibility means. The original ask was to make the green more accessible. Accessibility to me means access onto it. As Mr. Foley mentioned, we have 8 access points already, which were concrete put down by the state of Connecticut. We didn't ask for it. They just did it. It's ugly. It was the cheapest possible thing they would do. I think that the grass mats have worked out very well. They're portable, they're inexpensive, and lawnmowers have adjustments as to how high and how low you cut grass. As we all know, if you play golf, we can make the grass mat area shorter so that people can use it better. And the town council's job is to provide services to residents in the most cost-effective manner possible. The Historic District Commission's job is to preserve and protect the distinct characteristics and appearance of the town green. We're just trying to do our job. We don't have anything against anybody with disability. We just would love to provide access. I attended the Hicks Stern concerts on the green. I saw Stillwater. I saw multiple people with disabilities there. There is no ADA compliance there. It is all lawn, beautifully manicured, by the way. And everybody seemed to be able to access it and enjoy it. I didn't see anybody complaining about it. It was a wonderful event. So I think adding curb cuts to various places on the green would add the accessibility that everybody is looking for. Because otherwise, I don't know how we can accommodate everybody. If you have booths on the farmer's market, as Mary Pat mentioned, and Brenda Falusi, are you going to put fingers off of the concrete to make little like driveways to a tent so that persons with a mobile unit can get there? I don't think that would look very good, and definitely not historic. So I really think the best way to accommodate everybody is adding accessibility, perhaps purchasing more grass mats, cutting the lawn shorter, because we know we can do that, and provide services the most cost-efficient way. Since we know there are many parks that are not ADA compliant, and many fields where sporting events are that are not ADA compliant, where a larger majority of people attend those events. And it should be, and parents are paying for their students and the children to play these sports, and grandpa can't get there to see them. So I really think we should look at the town as a whole picture, as the Commission on Persons with Disabilities charges in their description of their job is to advise and research ways to make the whole town inclusive, not just the green, the whole town. And I think the use of the ARPA funds could be spread throughout the town more rather than just on the green. And my personal statement is, as a resident of Tolland for over 24 years, I've been a commission volunteer for over 15 years, and I've worked for the Tolland Board of Education for over 15 years as well. 10 of those years were in the ADA program, which helps students with disabilities, physical, mental, emotional, social, any kind of disability. So I'm very much aware, very much informed, and I really think that adding curb cuts to make
the green more accessible to everybody is the most cost-effective way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll continue with in-person participation. Who would like to raise their hand to approach the table? George?
George, Fishing Game Road, Tolland. You guys really opened a can of worms. I wish you hadn't. You got elected to make a decision, make it and get it done with. It's been going on for 4 years. I was at Ellington's Arbor Park this past week. I don't know if it's controlled by the town or who, for their food, farmers market, grass, everything else all growing up through all the blocks and all that crap, and they can't do anything with it because you have dogs and children, you can't spray and all that other stuff. So just either put in some concrete and get it done, or move the farmers market and everything else, get it done, make a decision and get it done. As far as a historic thing, did we lose historic society or lose whatever we lost historically when we decided to pave the roads? That was 100 years ago. Was it okay then? But now we can't put a lot of these sidewalks? Come on, people, get out of it. And it's about all I gotta say. Get our heads out of the sand.
Thank you, George. All right, continue with in person. If anyone would like to raise their hand, we'll go to Mr. Lapp in the back and then Mr. Rubino.
Don Lappin, 168 Mountain Spring Road. As time passes, we make improvements that benefit ourselves and society in a number of ways: roads, electricity, potable water on demand in our houses. While we should be respectful of the history of Tolland, we should not be stuck in the past. As a society, we should continue to strive to be all-inclusive and provide all persons access and usage of our great facilities here in town. The town council has clearly done their due diligence and have incorporated as many stakeholders and feedback in their decision-making process as possible, with the goal of making this project as painless as possible, but there will always be discomfort for some. The town manager has explored whether or not this will negatively impact financial support in the future for other projects, and both Mr. Foley and another audience member confirmed this will not. I fully support the addition of sidewalks on the town green. Finally, I'd like to continue to advocate for the potable water for all affected residents and look forward to hearing back about the process and next steps.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. And Mr. Rubino, and then there was a gentleman in the back.
Yeah, Bob Rubino, 296 Weigel Road. I'm gonna maybe borrow a little bit of Mr. Mueller. You heard him earlier. I'm gonna move over here with your permission, because I think your camera is gonna follow my voice and point to this sign, which I think he was calling out. The matter of all are welcome. And I think a lot of the discussion here tonight has been about inclusivity. And I'll get to that in a moment. 65 events. Mr. Foley, congrats to you. Being a little bit of a student of history, the town green, like any New England town, is really our first open space. It's the first public space that was for the community. So doing 65 events, you're essentially reinventing the center of Tolland as a community. We're all inclusive. There's that sign. If history serves in my mind, with the exception of hogs, any person in Tolland could graze their stock on the green. You could bring cows, sheep, horses. It's kind of vague on who would clean up after it, but maybe that was the fertilizer of the time, but not hogs. And here we are talking about sidewalks. Holly, I'm going to ride your wave. You said earlier, I think you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're not a big person, a big fan of labels, ADA folk.
I did say that.
Right? People with disabilities. Because that's them. It's not us. Yeah. I got news for you. If you're lucky, it will be. If you're lucky, all of us in this room will grow up and be old. And the majority of us will be confined to a wheelchair or a walker or a cane, and we're gonna lose our independence. And we're gonna be pissed off. We're gonna be mad at the world because no longer can we do the things that we wanted to do. No longer do you have access to those places you used to confidently strive. No longer. So I sent you a letter. And I'm going to shorten it for the sake of those in the audience. I'm in support of this proposed sidewalks. Because this matter of accessibility has really been brought to the front of my mind with laser beam focus. And I'll read. The past year recovering from a stroke, my dad was confined to a wheelchair on his worst of days or a walker on his best. Driving him to his weekly appointments brought me laser beam focus of the practical matters of the disabled. On arrival at our destination, our routine began with sighting an empty blue handicap sign. Perhaps there was a car parked in it that had requisite license to say they could do so. More often than not, no. But often Dad would begin his routine of beginning to sight curb cuts and slopes of sidewalks. And on occasion, he would say, no, this is a non-starter. Let's find some other spot. But that's what we did. Sometimes we would opt for a more friendly spot as managing a 230-pound man in a wheelchair, even on an ADA compliant ramp of a 1 in 12 slope, is no task for the faint of heart or those of lesser physical needs. It certainly wasn't for my 100-pound mother. For days that Dad was feeling up to his walker, the tenor of the day would shift to the vigilance of tripping over irregular surfaces. Irregular surfaces like the stone walks, the sidewalks that ring our green. The ones that we confidently stride without second thought. Because the practical matter is a person in a walker, unless the surface is wide enough, you can't walk next to them to spot them. Falling is everything for an elderly person. And if I remember demographically, elderly people is the fastest growing demographic in the town of Tolland. So perhaps as a thought exercise, or maybe one that we could do on the green with the help of the disabilities folks, we could run a thought exercise. We're going to have an ice cream social, and everybody in this room are going to participate, particularly the ones who are saying that the curb cuts are enough for ADA accessibility. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blindfold a third of the room. I'm going to release them up at 74 at that curb cut. I'm going to aim them generally southward, and you can find your way as a blind person to the ice cream. The other third, we'll put in a wheelchair. We'll release them at the War Memorial. We'll give them a shove northward, and you can find your way. The remainder, they can sit in their cars, parked, and they can watch the festivities from the safety of their window because they're frightened of falling to leave their car. It's in those terms that I think about inclusivity. When you feel it, being excluded really hurts. I'm going to skip the rest of this, but look, I respect many who serve in the interest of preserving Tolland's rich history, as I too share in that conservative spirit and my passion for conserving Tolland's open space. But I think until we've walked in the shoes less fortunate than our own, denying access to Tolland's original open space by not going forward, an ADA compliant sidewalk can only be seen as yet another missed opportunity of inclusivity. I drive by that under its construction every day to convert it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. All right, we'll continue with in-person participation and down in the back in orange.
Dennis Deegan, 689 Tolland Stage Road. Found it interesting to be here tonight. I am residing there. I'm not a taxpayer in this town anymore. So I wanted to come. I'm living in a house that was owned by my aunt and uncle. I've been visiting Tolland or living here for over 60 years. And so I do have some sort of an emotional attachment, I guess, to Tolland Green as such. I fully can appreciate, bad word, if I had a child or if I had a parent or if I had someone or myself that was in the shoes that some of these folks are in, I'm sure my opinion would be shaped maybe differently than it is. So with that said, I'm not even going to give my opinion, but I do think it's important to look at, I happen to value historic things, okay? So from my perspective, I think what it comes down to is whether or not that piece of grass wants to be memorialized for what it was intended to be, or whether it's, looking to have it be something else. And to me, that's the simple decision. I don't have to make that decision. I have an opinion. Hopefully, I haven't let too much of it leak out by my comments. But the reality is that's really what it comes down to. How are we valuing this plot of grass? And quite honestly, that's up to this town to decide, the people who are taxpayers here. And obviously, you were hired, I guess, as part of this process in your role, to try to figure that out. It's not easy, I agree, okay? Because I sat here and I've listened to everybody. But I think ultimately that's what it comes down to. Do we want to preserve something for the sake of history? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Your in-person participation, if anyone is fairly needy. And Sharon, I do recognize your hand being raised. We do need to get through other participants first before we go around for any additional comments. So I just want to make a point of that.
You want me to wait?
No, you're good. No, you're good, Marilyn.
Okay, so, thank you. I'm Marilyn Beebe, 90 Rhodes Road. And I wanted to let you all know tonight, I'm speaking as a private citizen, not in my capacity as a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm speaking as a private citizen whose father-in-law spent almost his entire adult life in a wheelchair and navigated this town well before there were ADA requirements and accessibility issues, and watched a person have to be carried over thresholds and moved bodily to try to participate fully in the community and in life. And I agree with Bob Rubino that all of us on our loved ones, we are one accident of birth, one illness away from being in a wheelchair or being disabled ourselves. So it is not them, it is all of us. I want to thank you to the town council and the town manager, especially for doing yeoman's work on this issue. You guys have kind of been killing it. And I am in favor of a permanent walk that would enhance accessibility on the green. I would like a clarification because I've heard a lot of back and forth about the ADA itself. I recognize that the ADA may not require us to provide permanent sidewalks on the green for accessibility as a passive use. However, during my research of the ADA, my reading indicates that any town-sponsored event on town land requires that ADA access be provided for all attendees. And that would be for all of the 65 events plus that occurs there. So that's not an option to, it's not saying the ADA doesn't apply to that. As far as I understand, the ADA does apply to that. I would also like to say that I was vice chair of the commission that Ms. Bach referenced. That was the 195 steering committee. I'm also a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. The points of access, the handicap ramps and the walks that you see on the pieces of the green are to provide the required pedestrian transit across the public right of way. So DOT would look at where they think the public would want to or should have access across the public right of way, and they would, where there was grass or where there was a green, they would add sidewalks at that point to allow that transit to occur. It was never intended, those points were never intended to be a comprehensive ADA access point by the green. That was not the function of it. And that is generally not DOT's purview. it is laughable and it's insulting to disabled people to think that their special access are 8 specific locations at the terminal points of the green where they can sit on a sidewalk and watch the rest of us enjoy the remainder of the open space. So thank you for your efforts. I'm totally in favor of what you're doing. And I'd like to point out that the essence of the town is its people. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Alright, continuing with in-person participation, if there's anyone who has not had yet the opportunity to speak yet, that they would like to approach. Great, and seeing none on Zoom. Any other hands for public participation? All right, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So by Councilor Luba, seconded by Councilor Murray. Seeing no further discussion, we'll engage in a roll call vote. So Councilor Murray.
Aye.
Councilor Luba.
Aye.
Councilor Nebecheck.
Aye.
I believe Councilor Nugent, is still on. Councilor Nugent, are you there?
Yes, aye.
Okay, thank you. And I'm an aye, so it's unanimous. And again, just for note of the record, we will be having a final decision most likely on the 12th after we get our 824 referral back from EZC. So just want to thank everyone for coming out and appreciate your engagement. That will move on to just going back to the agenda. 7A report. Oh, Councilor Check. Yes. Oh, you're good. Councilor Murray. Yeah. Okay. Alright, so 7A reports of boards and committees from the council. So Firehouse Subcommittee met a couple weeks ago or last week. We got an overview of a change order policy and also got an update regarding a grant we got from the state. Due to it being DESPP, Department of Emergency Service and Public Protection. There are certain guidelines that can't be applied to Station 340, but it'll be applied to 140, I believe. And that is it for us. So I'll pass it over to Road Self. I'll see any questions.
I'm sorry, you're talking about the bonding money that was just approved?
Yes, yeah, the bonding money, due to it being designated from the state, and because we already started the project for 340, it can't be applied to that project, but the remaining funds can be applied to 440 and 1. And right now, Brian, Chief Lytle, Jenny, who else? Megan Massa, I believe, and the engineer are going to meet to provide priorities. Dollars to be utilized towards the remaining 2 firehouses and give us a list of priorities for the subcommittee.
Okay, so we will be using the money.
Yes, yeah, we will be using the money because.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay, we couldn't apply it to 340 just because of CHRO guidelines and other requirements for state and bid projects, because we'd already started that one.
Okay,
So once you haven't started 40 or 440 yet.
sure.
And that is it for me, and I'll turn with the Road Salt Task Force.
Yes, we have scheduled a road salt task force meeting for next Monday to discuss, I think, the next phase report. And I heard the comments that have come in from the public regarding the first phase report. I think those will also be on our agenda.
All right, thank you. And then ARPA subcommittee.
So we will be meeting this Thursday, and talking about sidewalks. Sidewalks up, and Tolland Green, and that's something I really have, right, Brian, I think there's really it on that,
Major stuff on ARPA?
yeah.
That was the only,
That's the only
meeting, boy, there might have been one, but nothing of help.
Yeah, yep,
Thank you. That brings us to,
or Tammy.
actually, Councilman Nuccio had to leave, so they had departed around 9:38 p.m.
Okay.
Just for Lisa's record. All right, that brings us to 7B, reports of town council liaisons, so Councilman Murray.
I attended a historic district commission meeting last week, and the agenda was about sidewalks.
Thank you. Councilor Ludo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, that the VRC is on its summer break, so there was no official meeting, but that there was some back and forth between the members where one of the developments, which I also believe I might have mentioned at the last meeting, but that the coffee house that we've officially moved the coffee house coming up for September over to the senior center, and that the discussion will be on applying for VA benefits, the paperwork, and how to go through that entire process. So I think that was some great things, and I think that I think it'll be a good synergy between the VRC and the coffee house. The coffee house and the senior center. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Ludo. Councilman Yuka.
Yep, so mental health task force canceled on Monday night, but last week, August 17th, Commission on People with Disabilities met. They welcomed a new member, Robin Later. I'm not sure if I'm saying it. I'm saying that right. And we have a new, well, I should say they have a new vice chair, Julie Burns, is vice chair, which is excited. We talked a lot about sidewalks at that meeting, and I think that was really it. Just looking at the minutes really quick. But yeah, that's really what we talked about as well. Sidewalks.
Thank you. And then Tolland Conservation Commission met on the 10th, I don't know, the 10th, so I referred to the minutes, and the Water Commission was supposed to have a meeting last night, and that was canceled, I believe, due to lack of quorum. And that is it for me. So then we'll move on to going back here. New business, and just want to double check. I believe Councilor Murray, you had a question regarding the new business agenda items.
Yes, I was wondering if you would be open to a motion to postpone 8.1, the discussion on the public works vehicle study to our next meeting due to the late hour.
All right, so I mean,
We wanted Scott here, in all seriousness, for his ADA expertise on the sidewalks as well, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Like he's waited all the time, now he's just asking.
yeah, no, that's my thing is, I would personally just like to ask Scott's opinion if you would.
I know.
If you would like to, go through this now, or if you'd rather, come back again.
I'll come back.
Are you sure? I feel so bad.
I think I'm gonna be sick that day.
And I think to be fair, we're at the point where we're just barely at a quorum, with, Vice Chair Regan, Councilor Khan unable to attend, and Councilor Nuccio had to depart early, so, I will, entertain a motion to postpone the discussion of this public works vehicle study for our first meeting in the month of September.
So moved.
So by Councilor Murray, is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Luba, and because we're all in person, do a voice vote, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that is unanimous. Thank you, Scott, for topping it out,
Thanks, Scott.
we appreciate you, and it'll give us more time to give you a lot of good questions.
No, I think, can we do it now?
We're tired.
And if I may, if there's a way that we can get the Zoom back.
Oh, yes.
Sorry about that. It's just-
Yeah, Brian, if you're able to switch that back over to the full screen.
Because I'm starting to get you.
I know. you-
By the way, we're gonna lose Zoom in
There's Caitlin.
18 minutes.
Yes, yes. Have a good night, Scott. Safe travels.
Run if you
Thank you, Scott.
All right, have a good night.
Have a good night. So 8.2, consideration of resolution to authorize the submission of a grant application for the 23-24 local prevention council grant offered by Department of Health and Addiction Services, Prevention and Health Promotion Division in collaboration with regional behavioral health action organizations, Tolland RHBO to amplify.
So I think this is a good opportunity for us to have our first experience with Caitlin Mather, our Assistant Human Services Director. And she's going to explain this grant application that we want to do. Kate, if you could unmute yourself.
All right, I've asked them to unmute, so they should get them.
There she is. Go ahead, Caitlin.
See. Hopefully your audio works. If you are speaking, Caitlin, we unfortunately cannot hear you.
She unmuted or did you unmute her?
I asked unmute so that she could speak, so. She might be having technical difficulties, so we may have to.
No worries. Okay, so this is basically the vaping grant. Bev, do you want to explain it any more in her speed?
Maybe she fell asleep. Sorry. She does have a 1-year-old. Yeah, this is the Amplify grant that we've been getting for several years, probably about 5 or 6 years. As I mentioned in the cover letter, we normally were getting 3,957. And this year, last year, we got a couple $100 more, this year too, so that's what we're applying for, the full 4,000. The money is through the Amplify program. They are targeting vaping again. So we'll have to come up with some more creative ways to do that in our community. I think this year will probably be a little bit easier in the past because of COVID. We'll be able to get into the school systems, do some more programs with kids. Very impressed with Caitlin and her being able to connect. Also with her doing the summer theater program, she got to know a lot of the kids and the faces. So I'm looking forward to us being able to do more, and we probably will still purchase some Narcan kits for the fire department with this money like we did previously, so they can keep them on their ambulance, so.
Okay. That's great. Are there any questions from council members? Councilor Murray?
I know, there's been some like distribution of material at the farmer's market. Is that some of that?
That was some of it from
Yeah.
the previous, yeah.
That's great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, we'll be looking to buy meaningful items.
Okay, but still, it's great that there's some outreach happening. So thank you for all those efforts and thank you, Caitlin.
And actually, when we were at the summer theater, quick story, we had in the woman's room, we had a vaping poster and one of the little kids said, "What is vaping?" And so he was like, I said, "Oh, wow, they actually work." And we were able to set, and I was talking to her about that. Why would people do that? You know, so it was really, it's a really fun thing.
Great. Thank you, Bev.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Bev. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to refer resolution outlined in 8.2.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
And actually, I think Caitlin, you might be able to speak now if you'd like to add any additional comments, make a vote.
Can I finally talk? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Caitlin. Thank you.
Beautiful. Hi, everybody. Okay, so you guys did great. You summed it up for me. Sorry for the technical difficulties. But yeah, so the LPC has been going on for a long time. I submitted some funding. It's a pretty good group, different ideas about ways to utilize the money, collaborating with the school. We've already planned 2 hidden in plain sight presentations happening at Tolland High School in November. So during parent teacher conferences, they're going to set up a room for parents to be able to come through and take a look at different ways to kind of identify substance use or mental health concerns with their, high school age kids. So that's going to be great. A lot of collaboration with the Board of Ed and the superintendent's office on things like that. And finding good ways to keep our youth doing good things with this money. So.
That's great, Caitlin. Thank you. I appreciate the additional insight. All right. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll do a voice vote. So all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Caitlin. And thank you, Bev. And have a great night.
Thanks, you too.
All right, that brings us to 8.3A, appointments, vacancies, and various municipal boards and commissions. I'll entertain a motion to approve the Planning Zone Commission alternates.
So moved.
Second.
So by Councilor Luba, second by Councilor Murray. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. 9, old business, there is none. Item 10 is report of the town manager. If there's any updates that you'd like to provide.
There are. The clerk and registrar are in good shape as we head towards the election. At a meeting this week, we discussed that. The state police contracts typically again signed towards the end of August. We are waiting on an MOU with the state police to be a part of that contract, and that is in regards to data. And in that, basically, you know, we all hear the questions: is Tolland safe? Is crime getting good? Is crime getting worse? Is crime getting better? The fact of the matter is, we don't know. And we have no measuring stick, absolutely none, as to what the crime is in our town. No comparable data to previous years, no trending, no mapping, no nothing. And I've made an ask to the commissioner's office at desk to have that provided. I've been told that they can absolutely provide that with not a lot of great effort. I wanted an MOU, they concurred, so we're moving forward there. Pickleball's still pushing forward as we, you know, with the Crandall sports, which by the way are going along great. They're in the fencing portion of it. Now with that'll have pickleball, and we're applying for some grants at different places in town. I also have a meeting with the pickleball folks, the louder group of folks, a louder group of people that to play pickleball to discuss the pickleball stuff. And so that's really all I have. That's not major cooking right now.
Any questions from council members for the town manager? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item item 11, adoption of the minutes. 11.1, I'll entertain a motion. August 8th, 2023, regular meeting minutes. So by Councilman Murray, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Yudichak. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That is unanimous. That brings us to item 13. Chairperson's report. Nothing major to report outside of the council chambers. Our next chairperson's hour will be the first Wednesday in September, which I believe it is the 5th or 6th at the same location as always in the library. One comment I'd like to make, I know last meeting, you know, Brian brought pickleball and I brought the fact that it was National Pickleball Day when we discussed it. And, you know, there's always fun, interesting international days, and just want to recognize that today it was actually recognized by the United Nations as International Day commemorating victims of acts of violence based on religious belief. Just to read briefly: freedom of religion or belief, freedom of opinion and expression, right to peacefully assemble, and the right to freedom of association are interdependent, interrelated, and mutually reinforcing. They are enshrined in Articles 18, 19, and 20 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and as stated, the General Assembly of the United Nations designated the 22nd of August as International Day commemorating victims of acts of violence based on religion or belief. Obviously, we've had several incidences, you know, an act of true violence last year at a sign off of Exit 68. Most recently in this past few months or weeks, there was incidences towards a church. Unfortunately, there's also been incidences, you know, in the virtual world and social media, rumors and unsubstantiated or unverified claims against other organizations. And even most recently, a letter that was received by the council, as well as several other communities in our state and across the country, targeting negatively Muslim Americans. I know Brian has reached out and referred this issue to the hate crimes unit at the state, and they provided an update indicating that this is a multi-town and multi-state issue that is being investigated. So just saying those words that, you know, hate really belongs nowhere, and I believe it's very important that residents reach out to the community, have conversations with one another to break down those barriers rather than setting walls up and those preconceived notions about various groups and organizations. So just would like to make that as a quick point. With that, I will move on to item 14, communications, or sorry. I skipped item 12. My apologies, Councilman Murray. Correspondence to council.
Thank you for staying on top of it, because I've lost track.
It's 6 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I got 3 emails, one regarding, besides the ones that were from the public hearing, 3 additionals, one regarding electric vehicle charging stations, one regarding drinking water in public buildings, and 1 input on the proclamation draft in tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Councilman Murray. So then I'll move over to item 14, communications and petitions from council persons. Any petitions or council or communications? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item 15, publicly listed participation on any subject within the jurisdiction of town council with a 3-minute limit. And I know Mr. Foley indicated that our Zoom account might close out at 10 o'clock. So if anyone would like to speak, they can approach the front table. Still have it.
Tolland, 168 Mountain Spring Road. I'll keep it brief, but just so everyone knows, I'm not going anywhere until my issue is resolved and hopefully all the other ones in town. I look forward to hearing back from the Road Salt Task Force. That's good to hear. There's a meeting next week. I would love to attend, but to my knowledge, at the closed meeting. I hope the next town council, there are some more updates on the salt contamination front. This is an issue that I've been dealing with for 7+ years at this point in time at my property. I'm looking for some level of finality to the situation. I was happy with the report and the simple fact that it does support the conclusion that the levels of sodium and calcium found in my well water are not of my own doing and are coming from some other alternate source as yet to be determined. As always, I'm more than happy to assist in any way possible to provide access to my property for any further data and or analysis. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sean. Is there anyone else in the public? Actually, just state the record, either the raise hand function or *9 on Zoom, or if you're in the public, you can approach the table. All right, going once, going twice. Oh, yep, Bob Rubino.
296 Whitehall. Look, what you guys did tonight, you didn't have to do a public hearing, but I think that was really important for a topic that is, I think, draws from both ends of the universe. So kudos to you. You know, just as a critique, one of the things I've noticed over the years with councils is they'll make comments about, oh gosh, I wish more people would turn out. I think one way you can do that, you being the chair, Steve, this one's kind of directed at you, is you'll have people speak during public hearing, and many times the public will say their thing and then they'll sit down after their 2 minutes and then the meeting will move on. And I know that counselors have an opportunity to kind of pick up that mantle and say, you know, I heard something today I would like to maybe put for further discussion. I think as the chair, you're in a unique position to sometimes do a roll-up of things that you've heard in the public participation. We've heard from this resident about salt. We've heard from this resident about X, this resident about Y. Just so the audience knows that you heard.
Yeah.
That can go a long way in getting people to come out and actually participate in the process. That's not you.
We appreciate it, Rubino. Any other public participation? All right, seeing none, we'll move to item 16, adjournment. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:58 PM.
So moved.
So by Councilor Luba, is there a second?
Second.
All right, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. Have a great night.
Thank you.